She walked down the aisle in a $12,000 dress, smiling for cameras that didn't know her name. The man waiting at the altar wouldn't look at her. He wouldn't touch her hand. And when the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," Roman DeLuca leaned in close enough that she could smell the bourbon on his breath, and he whispered 6 words that would haunt her for the next 3 years. Don't ever mistake this for love. By nightfall, she'd be locked in a bedroom alone. By month's end, she'd learn her husband was in love with a ghost. And by the time the bullets started flying, Alara Vance would have to decide if a man who never chose her was worth dying for. If you're still with me, hit that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Stay with me till the end. You won't believe what happens in Part 3. Basta. Part 1. The Wedding. The rain started 2 hours before the ceremony, and Alara Vance took it as an omen. She stood at the tall window of the bridal suite on the 14th floor of the Whitmore Hotel, watching fat drops smear the Chicago skyline into something gray and unfamiliar. Down on Michigan Avenue, black town cars idled in a long line, headlights burning through the wet afternoon. Men in dark suits stood under umbrellas with one hand inside their jackets. Her father had insisted on the security. Roman DeLuca's side had tripled it. "You're going to ruin your makeup if you keep crying." Alara didn't turn around. She hadn't even realized she was crying. She lifted her fingers to her cheek, found the wet there, and wiped it off like it was somebody else's tear. "I'm not crying, Nora." "Honey, I'm looking right at you." Nora Vance stood in the doorway with a champagne flute in one hand and a cigarette she wasn't supposed to be smoking in the other. Her mother had always been beautiful in a hard way, cheekbones like a blade, mouth painted the exact red of a stop sign. She was 53 and looked 40, and she hadn't hugged her daughter since Alara was 9 years old. "Your father wants you downstairs in 20 minutes, Nora said. "Arthur's already there, glad-handing everyone. You know how he gets." "I know how he gets. The DeLuca boy's here too." The DeLuca boy. Like he was some kid at a church picnic. Like he wasn't a 34-year-old man who ran half the shipping on the Great Lakes and the other half of things people didn't talk about in polite company. "Is he drunk?" Alara asked. A pause. "Working on it." Alara closed her eyes. She'd met Roman DeLuca exactly 4 times before today. The first was at a dinner in her father's Lake Forest house 8 months ago, when she'd come home from Paris and found a stranger sitting at the head of the table eating her father's steak. Roman had stood when she walked in, the only person who did, and said Miss Vance like he was tasting the words, and she'd hated him on sight. Not because he was cruel, because he was still. The kind of still you only got from men who'd done things they couldn't take back. The second time was at a lawyer's office where they'd signed a prenuptial agreement thicker than a Bible. The third was at a charity gala where he'd put his hand on the small of her back for the photographers and said nothing to her for the entire evening. The fourth was last week, when he'd come to her apartment unannounced, stood in her living room without taking off his coat, and said, "My father's dying. He wants to see this done before he goes. Is there anything you need from me?" She'd said, "I need you to pretend you want this." He'd said, "I don't pretend, Miss Vance." And now here she was, in a dress that cost more than most people's cars, about to marry him. "Mom," Alara said, still looking at the rain, "why did Dad do this?" Nora took a long drag off her cigarette. "Because your father is a coward with a balance sheet where his heart should be." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got, baby." Alara finally turned. Her mother's eyes were wet too, but Nora Vance would rather bite off her own tongue than admit it. They stood there a minute, mother and daughter, the rain drumming soft against the glass. Then Nora set down her champagne, crossed the room, and did something she hadn't done in 22 years. She hugged her daughter. It was brief. It was clumsy. Nora smelled like Chanel and tobacco, and something underneath it that might have been fear. She pulled back and held Alara's face between both hands and said, very quietly, "Listen to me. That man down there is not your father's friend. He is not your friend. Do you understand me?" "Mom, do you understand me, Alara?" "Yes." "Keep your eyes open, keep your mouth shut, and for the love of everything, do not fall in love with him." A knock on the door made them both jump. It was Celine, the wedding planner, a small, nervous woman with a headset and a clipboard, and the haunted expression of someone who had just seen what a DeLuca wedding actually looked like from the inside. "Miss Vance, we're We're ready for you. Alara took one more look at herself in the mirror. The dress was ivory silk, hand-beaded, built by a designer in Milan who had flown in personally for 3 fittings. Her dark hair was pinned back in a low chignon. Her mother's pearls sat cool at her throat. She looked, she thought, exactly like what she was. A 26-year-old woman being sold to a man who didn't want her, at a price nobody had told her. "Okay," she said. "Okay." Her father was waiting at the top of the aisle. Arthur Vance was 61 years old, tall and silver-haired, still handsome in the way rich men stayed handsome, by paying for it. He was wearing a charcoal suit and a tie Alara had bought him for his birthday, and when she stepped off the elevator and came down the long corridor toward the ballroom doors, his face did something complicated that she didn't have time to read. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." "Thank you, Dad. Your mother come up?" "She came up." "She say anything?" Alara tucked her hand into the crook of his arm. She felt him stiffen, just slightly, and she thought, so he knows I know something. He just doesn't know what. "She said the flowers were lovely," Alara lied. Arthur exhaled. Arthur Vance relaxed, and in that one small moment, Alara felt a little piece of her childhood die. The last small piece she didn't know had still been alive. The doors opened. 400 people stood up. The ballroom of the Whitmore was a cathedral of white roses and candlelight, and every single head turned toward her. She recognized maybe a dozen of them. The rest were strangers in $10,000 suits, senators, developers, a judge her father had bought twice, and then, in a great dark block on the left side of the aisle, the DeLuca family. They did not look like the guests on the right side. The men were heavier, harder, quieter. The women wore black even though black wasn't the color. Nobody was smiling. At the very front, in a wheelchair, sat a shriveled old man with an oxygen tank and eyes like 2 burnt matches. Salvatore DeLuca, the dying patriarch, the reason any of this was happening at all. His gaze tracked her the whole way down the aisle, and it was not friendly. It was not unfriendly. It was the look of a man watching livestock being driven to market. And at the altar, under an arch of white lilies, Roman DeLuca was waiting. He was tall. She'd forgotten how tall. 6'3", maybe 6'4", with shoulders like a longshoreman and a face that belonged on a mug shot or a magazine cover depending on the light. Black hair, cut short. A scar through his left eyebrow. Gray eyes that, as she walked toward him on her father's arm, did not leave her face. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He just watched her come. "Keep your eyes open. Keep your mouth shut." Her mother's voice, a drumbeat in her skull. Do not fall in love with him. No danger of that, Mom, she thought. No danger at all. Her father handed her over. There was a moment, a tiny moment, when Arthur Vance hesitated, when his hand didn't want to let her hand go, and Alara felt a white-hot flare of rage so bright it almost blinded her. "Now? Now you hesitate? Now after you sold me to him like a broodmare?" She squeezed his fingers hard enough to make him flinch. Then she let go. Roman's hand closed around hers. His palm was dry. His grip was steady. He leaned down. He had to. She was 5'7" in heels, and he was still taller. And for one second she thought, oh God, he's going to say something kind, and I'm going to break. "Don't ever mistake this for love." That was what he said. 6 words. Low, right at the edge of her ear. His breath smelled like bourbon. His voice was flat and tired and almost apologetic. Then he straightened up, faced the priest, and the ceremony began. Later, Alara would not remember a single word the priest said. She would remember the feeling of Roman's ring sliding onto her finger, too big, catching on her knuckle. She would remember saying "I do" and hearing her own voice like it was coming from another room. She would remember the kiss, dry, brief, a brush of his mouth against the corner of hers that felt less like a kiss and more like a signature on a contract. And she would remember turning to face 400 strangers as Mrs. Roman DeLuca and seeing her mother in the 3rd row, already walking out. The reception was a circus. There were ice sculptures. There was a 12-piece band. There was a cake taller than the bride and a champagne fountain that her father had ordered from a place in New York because it was, he said, the only one in America that doesn't look tacky. It looked tacky. There were photographers from 3 magazines and a videographer who'd signed a non-disclosure agreement so heavy it had a notary's stamp on it. Roman sat beside her at the head table and did not speak to her for the first 45 minutes. He spoke to everyone else. He leaned across her to clasp hands with a red-faced man in a tuxedo who turned out to be a United States congressman. He stood and hugged a massive gray-haired man with a broken nose who called him Roma and kissed him on both cheeks. He accepted congratulations in Italian, in English, and once, bafflingly, in what Alara thought was Greek. He drank bourbon. He ate almost nothing, and every time someone asked him a question about your beautiful bride, he said the same thing in the same flat voice. Yes, she is. And then he changed the subject. By the time the salads came out, Alara had stopped trying. She drank her champagne. She drank his champagne when he pushed the glass toward her without looking. She smiled at strangers who kissed her cheek and called her Cara and told her she was the luckiest girl in the world. She thanked a very drunk state senator for his toast, which had included a joke about her childbearing hips that she was still, 10 minutes later, trying to decide if she had imagined. And then, halfway through the entree, she felt someone staring at her. It was a woman. Third table from the front, on the groom's side. Late 20s, maybe 30, dark hair, darker eyes, a deep green dress that had clearly been chosen to be noticed. She wasn't beautiful in any conventional way. Her nose was too long, her mouth was too wide, but there was something about her, some heat or hunger, that pulled the eye. She was not eating. She was not talking to the man beside her. She was looking at Roman, and when Alara caught her at it, she didn't look away. She looked at Alara instead, long and slow, up and down, taking inventory. Hair, face, dress, pearls. And then, and this was the part Alara would think about later, at 3 in the morning when she couldn't sleep. The woman in green smiled. A small, private smile. The kind you give a joke only you understand. Then she turned her head and said something to the man next to her, and laughed. Alara set down her fork. Roman. He didn't hear her. He was listening to the broken-nosed man. Tommy. His name was Tommy. Explained something about a shipment. Roman. He turned. Those gray eyes. That stillness. Yes? Who is the woman in the green dress? For the first time all day, something flickered in his face. It was small, and it was fast. And if she hadn't been looking for it, she would have missed it. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't even surprise. It was more like someone had just pressed a bruise he'd been pretending wasn't there. Nobody, he said. Roman. I said nobody, Alara. It was the first time he had ever said her first name. She held his gaze. He held hers. The band was playing something slow and stupid, a cover of a song she'd loved in college, and for a second Alara thought about standing up, picking up the full bottle of Dom Perignon in the silver bucket beside her chair, walking across the ballroom, and pouring it over the woman in the green dress's head. She didn't. She was a Vance. Vances did not make scenes at their own weddings. She picked up her fork. She kept eating, and somewhere, in a small quiet place inside her chest, a door she hadn't known was open, quietly closed. The first dance was at 9. The band leader, a smooth man in a white dinner jacket who had done Arthur Vance's 60th birthday and Arthur Vance's daughter's sweet 16 and now Arthur Vance's daughter's wedding, and probably, if things kept going the way they were going, Arthur Vance's daughter's funeral, announced it with a flourish. Roman stood. He held out his hand. Alara took it. They walked out onto the floor together, to polite applause, and the band started into the song. She had chosen it herself, a slow jazz standard her grandmother had loved. Her grandmother, who was the last person in this family who had married for love and meant it. She had picked it 3 weeks ago, in a meeting with the wedding planner, and she had cried a little in the bathroom afterward. Roman put his right hand on her waist. He took her right hand in his left. He held her at a perfectly correct distance, close enough for propriety, far enough that the photographers would have to work for a good shot. You dance well, she said. My mother made me learn. I didn't know you had a mother. He almost smiled. It was not a full smile. She would learn, over time, that he did not do full smiles. But the corner of his mouth lifted a quarter inch, and then it was gone. Everybody has a mother, Mrs. DeLuca. Alara. What? My name is Alara. You haven't used it. I used it at the table. Once? He considered her. The band swelled. They turned together in a slow, practiced circle, and she felt the heat of his hand through the silk of her dress, and she hated that she felt it. "Elara," he said, "thank you." "Is there something you want to ask me?" "Yes." "Ask then." She took a breath. 400 people were watching. Her father was watching. The woman in the green dress, she had checked, she couldn't help herself, was watching. "What are the rules?" Elara said. He didn't answer at first. He just kept dancing, slow and even, his gray eyes on hers. "What rules?" "For us. For this. This, whatever this is. Am I supposed to sit at your table every night? Am I supposed to share your bed? Am I supposed to go to things with you? Parties, dinners, whatever your people call it when they all get together? Am I supposed to have your children? Am I supposed to pretend, Roman?" "Because I can pretend. I'm a Vance. I was raised on pretending. I just need to know what the script is so I don't embarrass either of us." The song was ending. She could hear it winding down, the saxophone sliding into its last long note. Roman looked at her for a long time, and then he said something that would live in Elara Vance's head for a long, long time after. "There is no script, Elara. You live in my house. You wear my name. Past that, do whatever makes you able to sleep at night. I won't stop you. I won't come near you. I won't ask you for anything. That's the best I can give you." The music stopped. The room applauded. Roman DeLuca let go of his wife, stepped back, gave a small formal bow to the crowd, and walked off the floor to go talk to Tommy with the broken nose. Elara stood alone in the middle of the dance floor for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then she smiled, waved at a photographer, and walked to the bar. She got drunk, not sloppy drunk, not Vance drunk, just a quiet, steady, 2 fingers of bourbon every 20 minutes drunk, the kind that smoothed the edges off the world without slurring your speech. She stood by a pillar with a glass in her hand and watched her wedding happen around her like she was watching someone else's. Her cousin Helene came over and cried about how happy she was for her. An elderly aunt of Roman's she had never met kissed both her cheeks and said, in heavily accented English, "He is a good boy. You will see. He just needs the right woman." A waiter dropped a tray of glasses near the cake, and everyone pretended not to notice. At 10:30, her father found her. Arthur Vance was not drunk. Arthur Vance never got drunk at his own events. He put a hand on her shoulder and squeezed, and she smelled his cologne, the same cologne he had worn to every school play and graduation and Sweet 16, and she wanted to scream. "You're doing great, sweetheart." "Thanks, Dad." "Your mother left." "I know." "She'll come around." "Will she?" A pause. He squeezed her shoulder again. "Elara." His voice dropped. "There are things you don't know about why this had to happen. Someday I'll tell you. But I need you to trust me that this was the only way." She turned her head and looked at him, really looked, at the silver hair and the soft jaw and the kind blue eyes and the mouth that had read her bedtime stories and told her she could be anything she wanted. "Anything at all, sweetheart. Anything in the world." "Dad," she said, "if you tell me one more lie tonight, I'm going to scream. I'm going to scream so loud they'll hear me in the lobby, okay? So please, just don't." Arthur Vance took his hand off her shoulder. He looked for a moment like he was about to argue. Then his shoulders sagged a fraction of an inch, and he gave her the smallest nod, and he walked away. It was, she realized, the first honest thing that had happened between them all day. Nights. At 11, the woman in the green dress came to the bar. She ordered something clear and expensive. She didn't look at Elara. She stood maybe 4 feet away, waited for her drink, took a long sip, and then, still without looking at her, said, "You have nice bones." Elara set down her glass. "Excuse me?" "Your face. Nice bones." He always had a type. Elara turned. The woman was, up close, older than she'd thought, maybe 32. There were fine lines at the corners of her eyes. Her lipstick was slightly smudged, from drinking, or from crying, or both. "I'm sorry," Elara said, very evenly. "I don't think we've met." "No, we haven't." The woman took another sip. Finally, she looked at Elara directly. Her eyes were not unkind. That was the strangest part. Her eyes were sad. My name is Isabella. Welcome to the family, Mrs. DeLuca. Thank you. He'll never love you, you know. Alara's hand tightened on the stem of her glass. I'm sorry? It's not personal. It's just, he already did it once. The whole thing. The loving. He did it so hard the first time it nearly killed him. And when she died, he climbed inside a bottle for 2 years and came out a different man. There's nothing left in him for you. I'm telling you this because I'm drunk, and because I liked her, and because you look like her, and because someone should tell you before you waste your life trying. Alara could not breathe. Who died? She said. Isabella smiled. It was that same small private smile from the dining room. The smile of a joke only one person understood. Ask your husband, she said. On second thought, don't. He won't tell you. Good luck, Mrs. DeLuca. You're going to need it. She lifted her drink and a small mock toast, turned, and walked away. Alara stood at the bar and watched her go, and thought, I'm going to be sick. She wasn't. She stood there and breathed through her nose, slow and deep, and the bartender, a kid, maybe 23, with a bow tie that was very slightly crooked, pretended to polish a glass and did not meet her eyes. Are you okay, ma'am? He finally said. I'm fine. Do you want another drink? Yes, Alara said. I want the whole bottle. He poured her another 2 fingers. He had a kind face. She thought about asking him his name and decided not to. She thought about telling him to run, to not end up like her father's friends, to go home and marry a girl who loved him and never look back. She thought about a lot of things, and she said none of them. She drank her drink. She went back to her wedding. At midnight, Roman found her. She had ended up in a small anteroom off the ballroom, the one where the waiters came and went, where the stacked linen smelled faintly of bleach, and the light was too yellow. She was sitting on an upturned crate, her dress hiked up to her knees, her shoes off, massaging her left foot with both hands. He stopped in the doorway. For a long moment he just looked at her. Everyone's asking where you are. I needed a minute. You've been in here 45, son. Must be a long minute. He stepped into the room. He closed the door behind him. Outside, she could still hear the muffled thump of the band. They had gone to dance music around 11, a mistake her mother would have prevented if her mother had stayed, and the bass came through the wall like a heartbeat. Your father is worried. My father can go to hell. Roman raised his eyebrows. It was the most expression she had seen on his face all day. Fair enough. He came closer. He did not sit. There was no chair, and he wasn't going to sit on a crate in a $3,000 suit. But he leaned against the wall opposite her, loosened his tie a 1/4 inch, and looked down at her with those unreadable gray eyes. Who told you? He said. What? Something happened. Something between the first dance and now. You were angry before. You're something else now. Who told you? She laughed. It came out harder than she meant it to. A woman in a green dress, Roman. A woman in a green dress came to the bar and told me you loved a dead girl, and I looked like her, and I should quit while I was ahead. Do you want to tell me her name, or do you want me to guess? He closed his eyes. It was the first time all day she had seen him do anything that looked like pain. His jaw worked. One of his hands, the one resting against the wall, curled slowly into a fist and then uncurled again. Her name is Isabella Marchetti, he said. She shouldn't be here. I didn't invite her. My father did. Your father's a real piece of work. Yes, he is. Is it true? Roman opened his eyes. He looked at her, and for 1 second, one long, stretched second, she saw something in him that she had not seen before. Something raw and young and tired, like a boy who had been awake too long. Is what true? Did you love somebody? Did she die? Do I look like her? He didn't answer for so long that she thought he wasn't going to. When he did, his voice was very quiet. Yes. Yes. And no. You don't look like her. Not really. You have dark hair. There's a way you hold your mouth when you're angry. That's it. Isabella sees what she wants to see. Everyone does. What was her name? Don't. What was her name, Roman? He looked at the floor. The band started a new song. Sophia, he said. Sophia what? Just Sophia. How did she die? That's not a wedding night conversation, Mrs. DeLuca. My God, you're a coward. She hadn't meant to say it. It came out of her mouth before she knew it was going to, and it landed between them like a slap. Roman's head came up. His eyes went flat and cold, and for one single moment she saw what other men must have seen across tables in rooms without windows. She saw what made people call him Mr. DeLuca and lower their voices. Then he exhaled, slowly. "Maybe," he said. "Maybe I am." He straightened up off the wall. He buttoned his jacket. He was leaving, she realized. He was just going to walk out and leave her in this back room with her shoes off, and the linen, and the yellow light. "Roman!" He stopped. "I'm not her, whoever she was. I'm not her, and I'm not going to try to be her, and I'm not going to compete with a ghost. Do you understand me? I didn't ask for this any more than you did. My father sold me. Your father bought me. We're both stuck in this. But I'm a person. I'm a whole person, and I will not spend the rest of my life being a stand-in for a dead girl." He stood very still with his hand on the door. "I know you're a person," he said, without turning around. "Then act like it. Good night, Ilara." And he opened the door and he walked out. She sat on the crate for a long time after he left. The band played 3 more songs. Somewhere out on the floor, her father was probably making excuses for her. Somewhere, Isabella Marchetti was probably ordering another drink. Somewhere, her mother was probably in a car on the Kennedy Expressway, smoking out the window, already halfway to wherever Nora Vance went when Nora Vance couldn't take it anymore. Ilara Vance. Ilara DeLuca. Now, she supposed, though the name felt like a shoe that didn't fit, put her shoes back on. She fixed her hair in the small cloudy mirror over the linen rack. She reapplied her lipstick. And she walked back out into her own wedding with her head up, because she was her mother's daughter even if her mother hadn't stayed, and Vance did not let them see her bleed. The penthouse was on the 40th floor. Roman had bought it 3 years ago, according to the real estate article her assistant had printed for her before the wedding. 11,000 square feet, 6 bedrooms, a private elevator that opened directly into the foyer, floor-to-ceiling windows on 3 sides, looking out at the lake on the east and the city on the west, and on a clear night, the lights of the Indiana shore glimmering across the black water. It was 3 in the morning when she walked into it for the first time. She had come up alone. Roman had stayed behind at the hotel with his father and Tommy and half a dozen men she didn't know the names of, and he had said in a flat voice that he would be along when he could. She had taken the elevator up with her small overnight bag. The rest of her things would be moved in the morning, and she had stood in the foyer in her $5,000 coat and stared at the strange, cold beauty of her new life. It was a beautiful apartment. Somebody had decorated it with money and taste. Dark wood floors, cream-colored walls, a long hallway with a series of framed black and white photographs of empty streets. There were fresh flowers on the console table, white roses. Somebody had known she was coming. There was a housekeeper, a middle-aged woman named Marta, who greeted her in accented English, showed her to the master suite at the end of the east hallway, and left her at the door. "Mr. DeLuca said to tell you he will be late, ma'am. If you need anything, the phone by the bed has an intercom. My room is press 2. "Thank you, Marta." "Good night, Mrs. DeLuca." The door clicked shut. The master suite was enormous. A bed the size of a small country, dressed in white linens. A bathroom with a tub she could have lapped in. A walk-in closet where somebody, Marta probably, or some personal shopper Ilara had never met, had already hung a selection of her things, apparently spirited from her apartment while she was getting married. She stood in the middle of all this, and she did not cry. She took off her coat. She took off the dress. It took her a long time. There were 47 buttons down the back, hand-sewn, and she had to twist her arms behind her like a contortionist to reach them, and 3 of them tore loose when she got impatient and yanked. She left the dress in a white silk puddle on the floor. The $12,000 dress. She hoped Marta stepped on it in the morning. She washed her face. She brushed her teeth. She put on a plain cotton nightgown that she had packed herself, a nightgown she had owned since college, thin and soft and a little frayed at the hem. She sat on the edge of the enormous bed in her nightgown in her husband's apartment that was now her apartment, and she waited. She didn't know what she was waiting for. Not him. She knew by then it would not be him. She must have fallen asleep. When she woke up, the clock on the nightstand said 4:47. She was curled on top of the covers, still in her nightgown, and the apartment was very quiet. But the front door had clicked. That was what had woken her. The sound of the private elevator chiming, and then the soft thud of the foyer door closing. She lay very still. She heard footsteps, slow, heavy, a little uneven. A man who had been drinking, but not enough to be drunk. She heard him cross the foyer and pause. She heard him hang up a coat. She heard him go into what she assumed was his study. A door opened and closed, and then nothing for maybe 10 minutes. Then the footsteps came down the hallway. They came all the way to her door. They stopped. Alara held her breath. She stared at the thin line of light under the bedroom door. She watched the two small shadows of his feet on that line. He stood there for what felt like a very long time. She thought about calling out. She thought about saying, "Come in," or "Go away," or "Who were you?" before this. She thought about a lot of things. She did not move. She did not speak. She watched the shadows under her door, and she listened to the quiet. And somewhere in her chest, she felt a small wild animal thing that she was going to have to kill before it got any bigger. The shadows moved. The footsteps retreated. A door opened and closed farther down the hall. And then the apartment was silent again. The silence of a very large space with two people in it who were not going to find each other tonight. Alara Vance rolled over and stared at the ceiling and did not sleep. The rain had stopped at some point. Through the east-facing window, she could see the first gray smear of dawn over Lake Michigan. Somewhere down on the street, 40 floors below, a garbage truck was grinding through its route. She was 26 years old. She was married. She was alone. She lay in the dark in her husband's apartment, and she made herself a list. She had always been a list maker, even as a girl. Her mother had teased her about it. 1. I will not cry about this again. 2. I will not pretend. Not for him, not for my father, not for anyone. 3. I will find out who Sophia was. 4. I will figure out what my father is not telling me. 5. I will learn this house, these people, this world. I will learn it until I know it better than they do. 6. She stopped at 6. She couldn't think of a 6. Not yet. Outside, the sky was slowly turning pink. The long gray lake caught it and threw it back, and for one brief moment, the whole bedroom went the color of the inside of a shell, rose and pearl and a soft, dim gold. And Alara Vance DeLuca closed her eyes against it and felt, for the first time in a long time, not sad, exactly. Something else. Something harder. Down the hall, her husband, in a bedroom she had not seen, did not sleep either. She didn't know that yet. She would find out eventually, from Marta, who saw everything and said nothing unless asked, that Roman DeLuca had sat in the dark in his office until almost 6 a.m., drinking bourbon he didn't taste, looking at a photograph she was not allowed to see. She would find out that he had walked down the hall and stood outside her door and lifted his hand to knock and not knocked. She would find out, in time, a great many things, but that was later. That morning, she watched the sun come up over the lake through the window of a room that did not belong to her, in a life that did not belong to her. And somewhere very deep inside her, under the fear and the fury and the exhaustion, something small and stubborn and alive decided, very quietly, that it was not going to die here. Not in this gilded cage. Not like this. The sun was fully up by the time Marta knocked on her door. Alara had not slept. She was sitting cross-legged on top of the rumpled bedspread in her cotton nightgown, the lake gone silver blue outside the window, when the soft double tap came. "Mrs. DeLuca? I have coffee." "Come in, Marta." The housekeeper came in with a silver tray. Coffee in a small white pot, cream in a smaller one, sugar, a single croissant on a plate, a cloth napkin folded into a triangle. She set it on the low table by the window without looking at the dress on the floor, without looking at the bed that had obviously not been slept in properly, without looking at anything at all except the tray and her own hands. "Is there anything else, ma'am?" "Is he here?" Marta paused. She was maybe 50, with iron gray hair pulled back into a low knot, and a face that had clearly learned, a long time ago, the art of giving nothing away. But there was a small kindness in her eyes that Alara had not expected. "Mr. DeLuca left at 6:30, ma'am. He said to tell you he would not be home for dinner." "Did he say where he was going?" "No, ma'am." "Does he ever?" The smallest flicker. Almost a smile, except not. "No, ma'am, he does not." Alara nodded. She drew her knees up under her chin and watched Marta pour the coffee. Black, 2 sugars, exactly the way she took it, which meant somebody had told Marta, which meant somebody had been paying attention. Marta? Yes, Mrs. DeLuca. Who told you how I drink my coffee? Marta set the cup down on the small table by the window and pushed it, delicately, an inch closer to the chair. Mr. DeLuca, ma'am, last week. Alara did not answer. She got up, walked over to the chair, sat down. She picked up the cup. It was good coffee. Expensive coffee. The kind of coffee that had been someone's job to get right. Thank you, Marta. You're welcome, ma'am. Marta left. The door clicked shut behind her. Alara sat in the chair with the cup in her hands, and she thought about a man who could not say her name at the altar, but had remembered, a week in advance, how she took her coffee. She thought about it for a long time. Then she got dressed. She did not put on anything from the closet the personal shopper had filled for her. She put on her own jeans, a gray sweater she had owned since her senior year of college, and a pair of flat brown boots. She pinned her hair back. She did not put on makeup. She looked, when she passed the mirror in the hallway, like a girl who had just moved into a new apartment, which was, she thought, exactly what she was. She spent the day learning her cage. That was how she thought of it, all through that first long day and the weeks that followed, learning the cage. She walked every room of the penthouse. She opened every door. She counted the windows, 31, the bathrooms, 5, the closets, 11. She found a room on the north side that was set up as a library, floor to ceiling in dark wood shelves, with a leather armchair and a reading lamp, and perhaps 2,000 books that had clearly never been touched. She ran her finger along a shelf and it came away clean. Somebody had dusted. Nobody had read. She found a music room with a grand piano covered in a black cloth. She found a nursery. That one stopped her. It was in the east wing, 2 doors down from what she had learned was Roman's bedroom. It was painted a soft pale green. There was a crib against one wall, still wrapped in its original plastic, and a rocking chair by the window, and a tall white dresser with little brass pulls shaped like elephants. There were no toys. There were no photographs. There was a single framed print on the wall, a watercolor of a bird on a branch, and a thin layer of dust on everything. Alara stood in the doorway and did not go in. She closed the door very softly, as if whatever was in there might wake up, and she went back to the kitchen and she asked Marta, as evenly as she could, whose nursery that was. Marta stopped stirring a pot on the stove. Mrs. DeLuca, she said, and her voice was very careful, I think that is a question you should ask your husband. I'm asking you. Ma'am, please. Marta, I live here now. If there are things in this house I am not supposed to know, I need to know that they exist, at least, so I can avoid stepping in them. Help me out. Marta set down her spoon. She wiped her hands on a dish towel. She looked for the first time fully at Alara, and Alara saw that there had been a decision reached behind the housekeeper's eyes. Not a large one, but a decision nonetheless. It was going to be a room for a baby, Marta said. 3 years ago. The baby did not come. Whose baby? Mr. DeLuca's. And the young lady he was with. Sophia. Marta's eyes widened a fraction. You know her name. I know her name. I don't know anything else. Marta was silent a moment. She picked up her spoon again, and she stirred the pot, and she did not look at Alara when she spoke. Miss Sophia was a good girl. I liked her. She laughed a great deal. You could hear her in every room of this apartment when she came over. She was not one of our kind, Mrs. DeLuca. She was a school teacher, from a normal family. She taught 3rd grade at a school in the neighborhood Mr. DeLuca grew up in. He used to go to the school board meetings just to look at her before he found the courage to introduce himself. He told me that once. He was embarrassed about it. He said it as a joke. Alara leaned against the doorframe of the kitchen. She felt like she needed the doorframe. How did she die, Marta? I think that part Mr. DeLuca has to tell you himself. Marta. Mrs. DeLuca, please. I have worked for this family a long time. I would like to keep working for this family. There are things that, if I say them, I cannot unsay. Alara nodded slowly. She understood. She wished she didn't. Okay, she said. Okay. Thank you, Marta. I'm making chicken for dinner, ma'am, in case he comes back. He won't come back. I know, but I'm making it anyway. And Alara looked at this stocky, gray-haired woman stirring a pot of chicken for a man who would not come home, and she felt, unexpectedly, like she might cry. She didn't. She went to the library. She pulled a book off a shelf at random. It turned out to be a biography of Alexander Hamilton, which almost made her laugh. And she sat in the leather armchair by the window, and she read the same paragraph 6 times without absorbing a single word of it. Outside, the lake turned the color of a bruise. Roman did not come home. He did not come home that night, or the next, or the night after that. On the 4th night, Alara came out of her bathroom at 11 o'clock and found a light on in the living room, and she walked in her bare feet and her cotton nightgown, and there he was, sitting on the long gray couch in his shirt sleeves, a glass of bourbon on the coffee table, staring out the window at the city. He looked tired. He looked in the low lamplight 10 years older than he had at the altar. He didn't turn when she came in, but she knew he knew she was there. "I didn't mean to wake you," he said. "You didn't wake me." "Couldn't sleep?" "Haven't been sleeping." He nodded slowly at the window. "Me either." She stood in the doorway. She was very aware of her bare feet on the cold wood floor, and of the fact that she was wearing nothing under her nightgown, and of the fact that her husband, 4 days into their marriage, had looked at her for exactly 1.5 seconds in a mirrored reflection in the window and had not turned around. Roman. I went into the nursery. Now he turned, slowly. His face did the thing it had done at the wedding when she'd asked about Isabella, that small tightening around the eyes, like he was bracing for a blow he had been expecting for a long time. He looked at her in her cotton nightgown, standing in the doorway of his living room, and he did not speak. "I'm not trying to hurt you," Alara said. "I'm not trying to make tonight about her. I live here, Roman. I'm going to keep opening doors. I'm going to find things. And if you won't tell me about them, I'm going to have to make up my own story about what I find. And the story I make up will probably be worse than the truth. So." She stopped. Her throat had gotten thick. "So if you could, just tell me about her." He was quiet a long time. She thought he wasn't going to. Then he picked up the bourbon, drank half of it in one swallow, set it down, and said, in a voice so low she almost didn't catch it, "Sit down, Alara." She sat, not beside him. She wasn't a fool, but in the armchair at a perpendicular angle, folding her legs underneath her. She pulled a cashmere throw off the back of the chair and wrapped it around her shoulders. He watched her do it without saying anything. "Her name was Sophia Russo," he said. "She was 27 years old. She taught 3rd grade at St. Catherine's, over on the west side. That's my old neighborhood. I grew up on the block behind that school. She was from the neighborhood too. Her father ran a bakery on Taylor Street. He still does. He hates me. He has reason to." "How did you meet her?" "I saw her at a Christmas pageant. My cousin's kid was in it. Sophia was running the thing. She was, a woman who ran things. She was like that. And she was kneeling down tying a 5-year-old shepherd costume and laughing. And I thought, that is the most alive person I have ever seen in my life. That was the first time I saw her. I was 30. I'd never felt anything like that in my life." He stopped. He stared at the window. "We dated for 17 months. We got engaged. She knew what my family was. I didn't hide it from her. I told her on our 3rd date. I said, 'Look, this is who my father is. This is who I work for. These are the things that are true about my life. And if you want to walk away, I won't blame you.' And she listened to all of it. And she sat there with her hands around a cup of coffee. And then she said, 'Roman, I am not afraid of your family. I'm afraid of what your family is going to do to you if you stay in it for me and hate yourself later.'" That was what she said. Verbatim. I have that sentence memorized. I'll have it memorized when I die." His voice had gone rough. He picked up the bourbon, finished it, set the glass down, and did not pour another one. "She got pregnant in the summer. We were going to get married in October. She had picked out a dress. We had already moved into this apartment. She was the one who picked the green she picked the color for the room down the hall. She wanted a boy. She said so. She said she already knew it was a boy." Alara was not breathing. In August, there was a problem. Between our family and another family. I don't want to get into it. It was a stupid problem. It was about docks. It was about docks and cargo and 2 old men who had hated each other since 1978. That's what it was about. And one night in August, Sophia and I were coming out of a restaurant on Taylor Street, a restaurant we went to every Friday, and he stopped. He put his face in his hand. They shot at me, Alara. They missed me. They did not miss her. The room went very quiet. A car horn honked, 40 floors below, far away. She died in the street. She died in about a minute and a half. I don't want to say the rest of what happened. She died in the street, and there was nothing I could do about it. And she was 27 years old, and our son, who we had decided to name Nicholas after her grandfather, died with her. That was August 14th, 3 years ago. That was 3 years and 7 months ago. Roman, I'm not telling you this because I want you to feel sorry for me. I'm telling you this because you asked, and because you deserve to know what you married. I went somewhere for a long time after that. I was not a functional human being for about 2 years. My father had to run things while I drank. And then when I came out of it, something was missing. Something I don't think is coming back. I am telling you that so that you understand. I am not being cruel on purpose. I am being this way because I don't have any other way anymore. I used it all up. Lan. He looked at her then. Really looked at her, for the first time since she had walked into the room. You look nothing like her, he said. Isabella is wrong. You have dark hair, that's it. Sophia was round. She had freckles across her nose. She had a laugh like a hyena. I used to tease her about it. You don't laugh like that. You don't even look at me like she looked at me. I knew the first time I met you in your father's house that you weren't her. I'm sorry if that's a cruel thing to say, but you're not. You're someone else. And I don't know how to be a husband to someone else. I don't even know if I remember how to be a husband. Alara realized she was crying. She was not, she thought, crying for herself. She wasn't sure who she was crying for. She reached up and wiped her cheek with the edge of the blanket. Why did you agree to this? She said. He laughed. It was a short, ugly laugh. Because my father is dying. He has 8 months. The doctors say 6. And my father has one dream left on this earth, which is that I marry a woman from a family with clean money and make him a grandchild and give him something to take with him when he goes. He asked me to do that. On his deathbed, Alara. I could have said no. I thought about saying no. I said yes because I'm a coward, and because he is my father, and because I owe him for the 2 years he spent running a business I wouldn't show up for. And my father. Your father is in debt to my father, Alara. A specific debt. A debt that could put him in federal prison if anyone ever looked at the books the wrong way. Your father came to my father 4 months ago and begged. He offered you as a way to settle it. My father agreed because you are young and from a good family, and my father thinks in 1962. I agreed because I had already agreed to marry somebody, and one somebody was as good as another. She could not speak. That's what I bought, she said. Her voice was not steady. That's what I was bought for. My father's bookkeeping. Alara, how much? What? How much, Roman? How much was I? Put a number on me. He closed his eyes. It wasn't like that. How much? $18 million, he said. Give or take. She laughed. It came out of her hard and fast, like a cough. She put her hand over her mouth. She was still crying, but she was laughing too, and it was not a good laugh. It was the laugh of a person who has just realized something they cannot unrealize. $18 million, she said. Alara, do you know what I went to college for? I went to college for comparative literature. Do you know what I wrote my thesis on? I wrote my thesis on the function of arranged marriage as a narrative device in 3 19th century novels. I thought it was funny. I thought it was a funny topic to pick because it was so obsolete, so over. Girls don't get sold anymore, I thought. That's not what this is, I thought. I used to read Middlemarch and feel sorry for Dorothea Brooke because it was 1829 and she didn't have options. And here I am, Roman. Here I am in 2026, and my father sold me for $18 million to cover a spread on his books, and I didn't even know. I didn't even know. Until now. I'm sorry. Don't. Don't, Roman. Don't you dare sit on your couch in your bourbon and tell me you're sorry. You're not sorry. You're tired. There's a difference. A man who's sorry does something. A man who's tired sits on a couch and looks at a window and lets the world happen to him. I am looking at a tired man. I am married to a tired man. And that is going to have to stop, Roman. It is going to have to stop. Because I did not go through this day to be married to a tired man. Do you understand me? He stared at her. There was, for the first time, something in his face that she could not name. It was not the coldness of the altar. It was not the flat stillness of the dining room. It was something like surprise. Like a man who has been sleepwalking for 3 years and has just heard a door slam. Yes, he said quietly. I understand. Good. She stood up. She kept the blanket around her shoulders. She walked to the doorway and stopped. I'm going to sleep in my own bed tonight, in my own room, in the house you bought me. And tomorrow I am going to start learning what kind of woman I am going to have to be to survive this. And I do not want you to pity me, Roman DeLuca. And I do not want you to apologize to me. And I do not want you to avoid me. If we are going to be two ghosts in this apartment together, we are at least going to be ghosts who pass each other in the hallway and say good morning. Is that clear? Yes. Good. She went to bed. She did not cry again. She lay in the dark and she stared at the ceiling and she thought about Sophia Russo, the third-grade teacher with the hyena laugh, who had told a 30-year-old gangster that she was not afraid of his family, but was afraid of what his family would do to him. She thought about Sophia a long time. She was not jealous of her. She thought she might have liked her, actually, if things had been different. She went to sleep around 4 in the morning. When she woke up, it was almost noon, and Marta had left coffee outside her door on a tray. She drank it cold. The days that followed had a shape she began, slowly, to recognize. Roman left early. He came home late, or not at all. When they passed each other, in the kitchen in the morning, in the hallway at night, they said good morning and good evening, and sometimes, just sometimes, a sentence or two more. He asked her once if she needed anything. She said no. He said, if you need anything, ask Marta. She will get it, or she will call me. She said, thank you. He nodded. He left. She started calling people. She called her college roommate Gwen, who was a tax attorney in New York now, and she said, in a voice so casual she almost didn't recognize it, can I ask you a hypothetical question about what happens to a corporation when the CEO's books are being quietly subsidized by outside money? Gwen said, Alara, what are you asking me? Alara said, nothing, Gwen. Thinking about a novel. Gwen was quiet a long time on the other end. Then Gwen said, call me if you need me. Call me any time. Do you hear me? She called her cousin Helene, who had cried at the wedding, and she took her to lunch at a small Italian place near the Drake. She asked Helene over the salads very casually whether Helene had ever heard anything at all, about her father's business being in trouble. Helene went pale. Helene said, Ellie, your father is Arthur Vance. Alara said, I know who my father is. Helene said, then don't ask questions you don't want the answers to. Helene did not finish her salad. She called her mother. Nora Vance picked up on the 4th ring. She was in Santa Fe at her friend Diane's ranch. She had been there since the day of the wedding. Mom. Alara, did you know about the debt? A long silence. Yes, baby. Why didn't you tell me? Because your father would have taken everything and left me in a motel with a suitcase if I had. I am not a brave woman, Alara. I have never been a brave woman. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mom. Yes. I need you to come back. I can't come back. I need you to come back. Baby, I'm asking you, Mom. I'm asking you like a daughter. Please. Her mother cried on the other end of the line. Nora Vance, who had not cried in front of her daughter in 22 years, cried for almost a full minute. I will come back in 2 weeks, Nora said finally. I will come back and I will tell you everything I know. I swear to you. I swear on me. 2 weeks. Can you hold on 2 weeks? Yes. Are you safe, baby? I don't know. Oh, Alara. I don't know, Mom. I don't know what I am. I'll see you in 2 weeks. She hung up. She sat on the edge of her bed in the apartment on the 40th floor, and she looked at the lake, which was gray that afternoon with white caps, and she understood, in a way she had not quite understood before, that she was completely alone. And then, like an answer, the Saturday after the phone call with her mother, she met Isabella Marchetti for the second time. She had not expected it. She had gone out. For the first time in 12 days, she had put on her coat and a pair of sunglasses and gone out, because she could not stand one more afternoon in the penthouse. And she had walked to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, a place on Oak Street with good espresso and small round tables. She had bought a coffee. She had sat down by the window. She had taken out a book, and a shadow had fallen across the table, and she had looked up, and there was Isabella, in a camel coat holding a paper cup, looking, in the daylight, much less like a ghost, and much more like a tired woman who had not slept well. Mrs. DeLuca. Miss Marchetti. May I sit down? Alara considered. Isabella's eyes were not cruel today. They were careful. Yes, Alara said. You may. Isabella sat. She held her coffee in both hands. For a moment, neither of them spoke. I came to apologize, Isabella said. Did you? I was very drunk at your wedding. I said things I shouldn't have said. My mother raised me better. I've been thinking about it for 3 weeks, and I finally tracked down where you'd gone this morning because I saw you walk in, and I thought, if I don't say it now, I will never say it, and it has been eating me alive. Okay? I apologize. I am sorry. I had no right. Alara studied her. The long nose, the wide mouth, the fine lines around the eyes that Alara had not seen clearly in the ballroom light. Isabella was, Alara realized, not beautiful. She had simply been the most present person in that room, the one whose unhappiness had been the loudest. Why did you come to the wedding? Alara said. Roman's father invited me. My family is, we're connected. I've known Roman since we were children. We were never, I didn't ask that. I know, I'm telling you anyway. We were never a thing. I wanted us to be, for a long time. When Sophia died, I thought stupidly that maybe, eventually, and then his father announced your engagement, and I realized I had been a fool for 3 years, and I drank too much at your wedding, and I took it out on you. I am sorry, Mrs. DeLuca. I am so profoundly sorry. Alara was quiet. She looked out the window at Oak Street, at a woman pushing a stroller, at a man walking a small white dog, at ordinary people doing ordinary things in an ordinary neighborhood, and she thought, none of you know. None of you know what goes on in the rooms above you. Alara, she said. What? Call me Alara. Mrs. DeLuca sounds like my mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law is dead, so... Alara. Isabella almost smiled. Almost. Alara, can I ask you something? Yes. Who shot Sophia? Isabella froze. Alara, Roman told me it was a dispute. He told me it was Docs and 2 old men. He didn't give me the name. Nobody will give me the name. Marta won't, my cousin won't, my mother won't. And I think if I am going to live in this marriage, I need to know who killed the woman who was supposed to be in it before me. So, who? Isabella stared at her a long time. Then she set down her coffee. She leaned forward, very slightly, and she lowered her voice. You did not hear this from me. Understood. It was the Conti family, a man named Vincent Conti. He is still alive. He is still in Chicago. Roman has been waiting for 3 years for a clean shot at him, and he has not taken it because taking it would start a war. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Yes. Do you? Yes, Isabella. I understand what you are telling me. Isabella sat back. She picked up her coffee. She looked, suddenly, much older than 32. I liked her, you know, Isabella said. Sophia. I wanted to hate her. I tried. I couldn't. She was just a good person. She brought me soup when I had the flu. Nobody had brought me soup since I was 8 years old. She brought me soup, Alara. She sounds like she was a good person. She was the best person I ever knew. And she is dead and I am still here, and Roman is sitting in a 40-story apartment pretending he doesn't have a wife. And the Conti family is still running laundromats on the south side. And the world is stupid, Alara. That is the main thing I have learned about the world. Elara drank her coffee. It had gone cold. She drank it anyway. Isabella. What? Thank you for telling me. Don't thank me. I just made your life worse. You didn't. My life was already worse. You just confirmed the dimensions. Isabella looked at her. For the first time, something like respect moved behind her eyes. I misjudged you, Isabella said. I misjudge people all the time. It's not a crime. Elara, listen to me. The Contis are not... They don't care about fairness. If Roman ever makes a move on Vincent, they will come for Roman, and they will come for everybody Roman loves. Everybody. Wife included. Wife especially. Do you understand? Yes. Do you? Yes, Isabella. I understand. Be careful. I will. And for what it's worth, what? Isabella hesitated. Then she said very quietly, He's not a bad man, you know, Roman. He is a tired man and a broken man and a dangerous man. But he is not a bad man. There is a difference. I thought you should know that too, since I told you the other thing. Elara nodded slowly. Thank you, Isabella. You're welcome. They sat in the coffee shop another 20 minutes, not saying much. Two women who had been pitted against each other by men they had not chosen, sitting at a round table in a coffee shop on Oak Street, drinking cold coffee and not being enemies. When Isabella got up to go, she put her hand on Elara's shoulder, a brief, firm, surprising squeeze, and she walked out without looking back. Elara sat by the window another hour. She thought about a lot of things. She thought about Vincent Conti, whose name she now knew. She thought about the nursery down the hall from her bedroom with the watercolor bird. She thought about her father, who had sold her for $18 million, and her mother, who was flying back in 12 days. She thought about Roman, sitting in his office at 1 a.m, looking at a photograph she had not seen. And she thought very clearly for the first time, I am not a thing. I was sold like a thing, but I am not a thing. And these men, my father, his father, the Contis, all of them, they have been moving me around on their board for a year now, and I have been letting them because I didn't know I was on a board. I know now. I know now. She paid her bill. She walked home. When she got to the lobby of the building, the doorman, a heavy older man named Frank, who had known Roman since Roman was a boy, looked up from his desk and nodded to her and said, Good afternoon, Mrs. DeLuca. And she said, Good afternoon, Frank. And she meant it, and Frank could hear that she meant it, and something in his face softened a fraction of an inch. She took the elevator up. She walked into the apartment. Roman was home. She had not expected that. It was 4 p.m. on a Saturday, and he was in the kitchen in shirt sleeves, standing at the counter with a coffee cup, talking to Marta about, of all things, the chicken Marta was making for dinner. He turned when Elara came in. He looked tired, as always, but he looked something else too, something she had not seen on him before. He looked a little lost. You were out, he said. I was out. Marta was worried. Marta was worried, or you were worried. A pause. Both of us, I guess. Marta very tactfully went to the other side of the kitchen and busied herself with the chicken. Elara took off her coat. She hung it on the back of a chair. She walked over to the counter, stood across from her husband, took a breath, and said, Roman, I went to a coffee shop. I met someone. I know who Vincent Conti is. His face did not change. His eyes did. They went, she did not know how else to describe it. They went awake. Something that had been sleeping in him for 3 years picked up its head. Who told you? It doesn't matter. Elara, it doesn't matter, Roman. I know, and I don't want you to go after him. Not now. Not for her, and not for me. I want you to sit down at this counter with me, and I want you to eat Marta's chicken when it is done. And I want you to answer one question, honestly, just one. And then we are going to live in this apartment like two adults trying to figure out what we are to each other. All right? He stared at her. All right, he said slowly. Sit. He sat. She sat across from him. Marta, at the stove, did not make a sound. Here's the question, Elara said. Okay. If we had met somewhere else, a bar, a bookstore, a restaurant, before any of this, before your father was dying, before my father was broke, before Sophia, before all of it, if you had just been a man and I had just been a woman, and you had seen me across a room, would you have come over?" He looked at her a long time. He looked at her like he had not looked at her since she had walked up the aisle toward him in the Whitmore Hotel. He looked at her like a man looking at a stranger he had never actually seen before, and he looked like it hurt a little, how clearly he was seeing her for the first time. "Yes," he said finally, "I would have come over." "Okay," Alara said. "Okay," Roman said. And outside, 40 floors below, on a Saturday afternoon in early spring, a garbage truck was grinding down Lakeshore Drive, and somewhere on the south side, a man named Vincent Conti was eating a cannoli in a pastry shop he owned, not knowing that a woman he had never met had just said his name in a kitchen 40 floors up. And nothing about any of it was smooth, and nothing about any of it was safe. But for the first time, Alara DeLuca thought, something in this apartment was real. She got up. She went to the stove. She stood next to Marta, and she watched the chicken. "Marta," she said. "Yes, Mrs. DeLuca." "Teach me how you're doing that." "Yes, Mrs. DeLuca." And Roman DeLuca at the counter, in his shirt sleeves, watched his wife stand next to his housekeeper at his stove, in his kitchen, in his apartment, and he did something he had not done since August 14th of 3 years and 7 months ago. He smiled, just a little, just at the corner of his mouth, just for a second. And then it was gone, and he picked up his coffee, and the moment closed like a door, but quietly, this time. Not locked, just closed. Like a door you could open again if you remembered where it was. The chicken, as it turned out, was excellent. They ate it at the kitchen counter, the three of them, Roman and Alara on the stools, Marta standing on the other side with her own plate, protesting that it was not proper for a housekeeper to eat with the family and being told by Alara to sit down and eat her dinner before it got cold. Marta sat. She did not speak much, but she watched, with her careful watery eyes, the way a woman watches a small fire she isn't sure she wants to put out. Roman drank water. That was the thing Alara noticed. For the first time since the wedding, he was not drinking bourbon at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. He drank a glass of ice water and then another one, and he ate Marta's chicken, and twice he made a sound that was almost a hum of appreciation, and Marta's cheeks went pink and she pretended not to have heard it. They didn't talk about Vincent Conti. They didn't talk about the $18 million, or Sophia, or the nursery, or any of it. They talked about the chicken. They talked about a leak in the powder room faucet that Marta had been trying to get Roman to deal with for 2 weeks. They talked about the weather. It was the single most ordinary 30 minutes of Alara's marriage, and when Roman got up to carry his plate to the sink, she felt a strange small ache in her chest that she did not know what to do with. He left again after dinner. He had a meeting, he said. He would be back by 11, he said. Alara nodded. She did not ask where. Marta did the dishes and would not let Alara help, and Alara went to the library and she sat with the book about Alexander Hamilton, and she did not read it. Around 9 o'clock, she heard the elevator chime down at the foyer. She looked up from her book. She heard voices, Marta's and a man's, low and familiar. Then Marta appeared in the doorway of the library, apologetic. "Mrs. DeLuca, your father is here." Alara went very still. "My father?" "Yes, ma'am. He says it is urgent." Alara set the book down, slowly, on the side table. "Where is he?" "In the living room." "Does he know Roman is not here?" "I told him." Did he seem disappointed?" Marta chose her words. She was good at choosing her words. "He seemed relieved, ma'am." Alara nodded. She stood. She smoothed her sweater, which did not need smoothing. She walked down the long cream hallway with the black and white photographs of empty streets, and she stopped in the doorway of the living room, and she looked at her father. Arthur Vance was standing by the east-facing window with his back to her. His hands were in the pockets of a dark wool overcoat. He had not taken the coat off. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and for a second she did not recognize him. He had lost weight. That was the first thing. His suit, under the overcoat, hung off him. His silver hair, which had been perfect at the wedding, was a little too long at the back, like he had missed an appointment. His eyes, those kind blue eyes she had stopped trusting 24 days ago, were red at the edges. He had been drinking. Not at a gala, not socially. He had been drinking at home, alone, and he had come here from wherever he had been drinking, and he was not doing a very good job of hiding it. Sweetheart, he said. Don't. Alara, don't call me sweetheart, Dad. Sit down. He sat down on the long gray couch where Roman had sat the night he'd told her about Sophia. Arthur Vance, who had been 61 years old 3 weeks ago and now looked 70, sat on his son-in-law's couch in his overcoat and looked at his daughter like a man who had come to confession and was not sure where to start. Alara sat across from him in the armchair. She did not offer him a drink. She did not ask if he was all right. Why are you here, Dad? I needed to see you. You needed to see me. Yes. You have my number. You could have called. You could have sent a car to pick me up. You did not need to come to Roman's apartment at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night in a coat that smells like scotch. So try again. Why are you here? Arthur flinched. It was small, but she saw it. Her father, who had sat across desks from senators and judges and men in federal buildings and never flinched when his daughter spoke to him like that. She did not enjoy it. She had thought she would enjoy it. She did not. Your mother called me, he said. Okay. She said she's coming back in 2 weeks. She is? She said you asked her to. I did. Alara, baby, please, I need you to not do whatever it is you are about to do. I need you to not dig into this. Your mother is going to tell you things, and they are going to sound worse than they are, and I need you to trust me that... Stop. Alara, see? Stop, Dad. Stop talking. Just sit there a minute, okay? Sit there. He stopped. He put his hands in his lap. His hands were shaking. That was new, too. Her father's hands had never shaken in her life. She looked at him a long time. I know about the $18 million, she said. His face, already pale, went gray. Who told you? Roman. Roman told me, Dad, because I asked him. Because I went into a nursery down the hall from my bedroom, and I saw a crib in plastic, and I realized my husband was living in a tomb, and I started opening doors. And when I opened enough of them, I ended up at the question of why I was here at all, and my husband, who I have been married to for 3 weeks, told me the truth, which is more than you did. So, I know. Let's start from there. Arthur opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Alara, he said, it is not as simple as a debt. Enlighten me. I was under pressure. For years, there were investments I made that went wrong. And to cover them, I took money from a fund that I should not have taken money from. And when the fund started asking questions, I borrowed from Salvatore. I thought I could pay him back. I thought I had 6 months. I didn't have 6 months. I had 2. And when I couldn't pay Salvatore, he was already sick then. He already knew he was dying. Salvatore called me in and he said, Arthur, you have a beautiful daughter, and I have a son who is wasting his life, and my dying wish is to see him married. And I think we can help each other. And you said yes. Alara, you said yes to Salvatore De Luca. Over the phone or at dinner or wherever it was, you sat across from him and you looked at him and he said, give me your daughter, and you said yes. Without asking me, without asking my mother, you said yes. If I had said no, they would have what, Dad? Killed you? Sent you to prison? Taken the house? The cars? The club membership? Yes, some of that. Yes. Instead of me. Alara, you don't understand. The prison part. It's not just me. When it unraveled, it would have taken a dozen people with it. Your mother's brother, my partners, Charlie Hughes, who you've known since you were 3. I owed it to them to... Don't. Sweetheart, don't you dare tell me you sold me to save Uncle Paul. Don't you dare. That is not a noble story, Dad. That is not a father protects his family story. That is a man who made bad decisions for a decade and handed his daughter to a stranger to cover his mistakes. Own it. At least own it. That's the least you can do for me now. Arthur Vance put his face in his hands. He sat on Roman De Luca's gray couch in his overcoat, and he cried. Not loudly. It was an old man's crying, thin and dry and mostly soundless, his shoulders shaking, his hands pressed hard against his eyes, as if he were trying to push the tears back in. Alara sat across from him and watched, and she did not move to comfort him, and a part of her, a small, clean part she had not known she still had, watched herself not move and was proud of her, proud of herself, and ashamed of being proud. When he could speak again, he said, into his hands, "I've ruined you." "No, Dad. You made a transaction. I'm the one who decides whether I'm ruined." He lowered his hands. His face was wet and old. "Elara." "What?" If you want to leave him, I can find a way. I can find the money. I can pay Salvatore back. It will take time, but I can." "No, Dad. No? No, I'm not leaving him." "Why?" She did not answer right away. She thought about the answer. She had been thinking about it for days without knowing she was thinking about it. She had an answer ready now, whether she wanted one or not. "Because he told me the truth, Dad, and you didn't. And that turns out to matter more to me than I thought it would. Go home." "Elara, go home. Sober up. Don't call me for 2 weeks. Not until after Mom gets back and tells me the rest of whatever it is she's going to tell me. After that, maybe we'll figure out how to have a conversation again. Maybe. But not tonight. You have to go." He stood up. He looked at her like a man looking at a stranger. He walked to the doorway of the living room, and he stopped, and he turned back. "I loved you, Elara. I do love you. I know you don't believe that right now, and I know I have no right to say it, but I need you to know. I know, Dad. I know you love me. That's what makes it so bad." He went. She sat on the armchair a long time after the elevator chimed and the apartment went quiet again. Then she got up and she walked to the window, and she stood there with her hand flat against the cold glass, and she watched the lake, black at this hour, and she did not cry. She had run out, she realized. She had run out of tears for her father. It was a strange, dry, light feeling. Marta came in eventually, quietly, with a small glass of water on a tray. She set it on the side table without speaking, and she touched Elara's shoulder once, and she left. That was the Saturday. Roman came home at 11:15. He found Elara in the kitchen, eating cold chicken out of a Tupperware standing up, still in her jeans and sweater. She did not tell him her father had been there. Not that night. He looked at her face, and he did not ask. He said, "Good night, Elara," and she said, "Good night, Roman," and they went to their separate rooms. The days that followed were not like the days before them. That was the main thing she noticed. Something in the apartment had shifted. Roman came home earlier. Not early, exactly. Not like a man who wanted to be home, but earlier than before. He would appear in the kitchen at 7 or 8 in the evening while Marta was cooking, and he would sit on a stool at the counter with a glass of water. He had, as far as Elara could tell, stopped drinking bourbon at home altogether. And he would watch Marta and Elara chop onions and roll out pasta and argue gently over how much salt was too much salt. He did not always speak. Sometimes he just watched. Sometimes he read a newspaper while he watched. But he was there. On the fourth night, he said very casually, while Elara was stirring something on the stove, "Who taught you to cook?" She looked over her shoulder at him. "Nobody. Marta is teaching me. Right now. You're watching it happen." "You'd never cooked." "I'd made eggs. I'd made pasta. I had a whole life, Roman, in which cooking was a thing other people did." "Your mother didn't cook." "My mother doesn't eat, she drinks." He laughed. Just once. Just a short, surprised exhale of a laugh, like he had not meant to. And Elara, with her back to him at the stove, smiled at the pot of tomato sauce, and did not turn around, and did not let him see her smile. On the sixth night, he brought home a book. It was not a thing. It was not a thing, she told herself. He had been to some bookstore. He had picked up a book. He had brought it home. That was all. It had nothing to do with her. Except it was the mill on the floss. George Eliot. She had mentioned the night they had sat in the living room, and he had told her about Sophia, that she had written her thesis on 3 19th century novels. She had not named them. She had not told him the title of her thesis. He had, somehow, in a conversation she could barely remember, filed away the fact that his wife had written about 19th century novels. And 10 days later, he had walked into a bookstore and bought her a George Eliot. He set it on the kitchen counter without comment. He went to change out of his suit. Elara stood in the kitchen and stared at the book and did not pick it up for a full 5 minutes. When she finally did, there was a slip of paper inside the front cover. Not a note, just a receipt. From a store called Sandmeyer's on Printer's Row. He had written, at the bottom of the receipt, in a firm, square handwriting she had never seen, "Thought you might already own it. If you do, take it back. E. E for Alara, she thought. He had never called her E in his life. He had written it like a nickname, like a husband wrote, and she wondered for a moment if he had done it on purpose or if his hand had done it without him. She kept the receipt. She kept the book, too. It was 9 nights after her father's visit that the first bad thing happened. She had gone out to walk. It was something she had started doing. Every afternoon, around 4, she would put on her coat and her flat boots and she would walk. Sometimes just to the coffee shop on Oak, sometimes farther. It got her out of the apartment, and it made her feel, in a small way, like she still had feet that went where she told them. That afternoon, she walked along the lakefront. It was cold. March in Chicago was always cold, but this was a particular kind of cold. A wet, windy cold off the lake that got under your coat and settled against your ribs. There were not many people out. A jogger. An old man with a small fat dog. A woman on a bench, reading. Alara walked as far as the little curved pier at the edge of the beach, and she stood there at the rail and watched the dark water slap against the stones, and she was thinking about her mother, and about the 12 days that had become 9 days that had become 5 days. When she realized that the man on the next bench was watching her. He was young. That was the first thing she noticed. Late 20s, maybe. He was wearing a thin, dark jacket in weather that was too cold for a thin, dark jacket, and he was not reading or looking at his phone or doing any of the things that people sit on benches to do. He was looking at her. She did not look back at him. She kept her eyes on the water. She pulled her coat tighter, and she turned away from the pier, and she started walking back the way she had come. And she listened, and after a moment she heard the crunch of his shoes on the gravel path behind her. He was following her. Her heart kicked up hard against her ribs. She did not change her pace. She walked. She did not take her phone out of her pocket. She did not know if taking her phone out of her pocket was the right thing or the wrong thing. She thought, very clearly and very stupidly, I don't know how to be scared. Nobody ever taught me how to be scared. At the corner of Michigan and Chestnut, she stepped into a hotel lobby. It was the Drake, which she had been to 100 times, and the doorman, a tall black man named Edwin, who had worked there since she was a child, nodded to her as she came in. She smiled at him. She did not stop. She walked through the lobby and out the back entrance onto Walton, and she flagged the first cab she saw, and she got in, and she said, "Please take me to the corner of Oak and State. Please just drive." And the cabbie, who had picked up enough nervous women in his life to know not to ask, drove. She got home. She rode up the elevator with her hands shaking in her coat pockets. She walked into the apartment. Marta was in the kitchen. Roman, as luck would have it, was home. He had come in early for once, and he was sitting at the kitchen counter with a glass of water on his phone. She walked up to him. "Roman." He looked up. He saw her face. In one movement, he set the phone down, stood up, and in 2 long steps crossed to her. "What happened?" "Somebody followed me." His face did something she had not seen before. It went flat. Not cold, that was different. She knew the cold face, the altar face. This was flat in a different way. This was a face that had information to process and a decision to make, and the feelings, whatever they were, had been shoved behind a door. "Where?" "The lakefront, near the pier. He was on a bench. He followed me to the Drake. I cut through the lobby. I took a cab home." "What did he look like?" "Young, white, dark hair, maybe 5'9", a thin black jacket, no hat. He had there was something on his hand, on the knuckles of his right hand. A tattoo. I couldn't see what it was." Roman went very still. "You saw his hand." "He was lighting a cigarette. I saw it for a second." "What kind of tattoo?" "Letters. 2 letters, I think. Dark ink, cheap ink, like jailhouse ink on the back of his fingers." Roman closed his eyes. "Roman." "Alara, listen to me. I need you to do exactly what I say. Okay? Okay. You are going to go into the library. You are going to close the door. Marta is going to bring you tea or whatever you want, and you are going to stay in there until I come and get you. All right?" "Roman, what is happening?" "I need you to trust me about an hour. Just an hour. Then I will come and I will explain. Please, Alara." She looked at him. His face was still flat, but his hand, the hand he had lifted a little without meaning to, was trembling, just slightly. The same tremble her father's hands had done on the couch 9 days ago, and it made her heart do something she did not have words for. She nodded. She went. She sat in the library, on the leather chair, with a cup of tea Marta had brought her without being asked. She heard Roman's voice in the other room, low and hard, on the phone. She heard him make 3 calls. She heard one door slam. She heard men's voices, strangers, 2 of them, in the foyer 45 minutes after she had sat down. She heard them leave. An hour and 10 minutes after he had put her in the library, Roman came in. He closed the door behind him. He looked older than he had looked at the kitchen counter. He sat down, not in a chair, but on the rug in front of her, one knee up, his elbow on the knee, so that his face was roughly level with hers. Alara. Yes. The tattoo you saw, the 2 letters on the back of his fingers. Can you draw them for me? In the air, the shape of them. She lifted her hand. She traced slowly the 2 letters she had seen. VC. Roman did not move. VC, she said, lowering her hand. Is that what it was? Yes. Vincent Conti, not Vincent. VC. It's a marker. It's what his boys get. When they've done something, it's a souvenir, a graduation pin, you could call it. I know exactly who you saw. His name is Danny Russo. No relation. That's a common last name. Cheap tattoo on the right hand, about 5'9", 28 years old. Been following people for Conti for the last 4 years. He is what is called a spotter. He watches. He reports. Okay. He was watching you, Alara. That means Vincent knows about you, which is something I did not want, which I have been very careful to prevent. Because of what happened to Sophia. Because of what happened to Sophia. She was quiet. The tea on the table beside her had gone cold again. She had a bad habit of letting tea go cold. She thought stupidly, I need to work on that. Roman. Yes. Why would he start watching me now? I've been your wife for a month. If he was going to do this, wouldn't he have done it the day after the wedding? Roman looked at her. For the first time, she saw something in his face that was not flat and not cold, but something closer to naked fear. And it made her want to reach for him, and not reach for him in equal measure. Something has changed, he said. Something has happened, or is about to happen, that has made him pay attention to you. I don't know what yet. I'm going to find out. Tonight. I need you to stay in the apartment until I do. Not a walk, not the coffee shop, nothing. Frank downstairs is going to know. Marta is going to know. We are going to be very careful for a few days, and then we are going to make some decisions. Okay. I am sorry, Alara. It's not your fault. Yes, it is. It is. It is exactly my fault. I brought you into this. I let my father bring you into this. I knew what I was doing, and I did it anyway because I did not want to fight my father. And now you are in it, and they have noticed you, and this is on me. Do not let me off the hook for it, please. She looked at him. He was still on the floor in front of her, on one knee, and she saw, more clearly than she had seen anything in her marriage, that he was a man who had been running from a feeling for 3 years and 7 months, and that the feeling had just caught up to him. Not love. Not yet. Something smaller and harder and more honest. He did not want her dead. That was what his face was telling her. He did not want her dead, and he did not know when exactly he had started not wanting her dead. And it was frightening him. She reached out. She put her hand on the side of his face. She had never touched him before. His jaw was rough. He had not shaved, she realized, in probably 2 days. She held her hand there a moment, and then she took it away. I won't go out, she said. Thank you. Roman. Yes. Do not go after Vincent Conti tonight. He was silent. Roman, swear to me. I know what it feels like to want to kill somebody. I learned it when my father walked out of this apartment 9 days ago. I know what it feels like. And I am telling you, because I know, that if you go after him tonight, you will not come back in the right shape, or you will not come back at all. And either way, you will have lost, and so will I. I am asking you, do not go tonight. I was not planning to go tonight, Alara. But you were thinking about it. I'm always thinking about it. That is a separate question. Don't go. He looked at her a long moment. Okay, he said. Okay. I won't go tonight. Thank you. He stood up. He looked down at her. He did not lean down to touch her or kiss the top of her head or any of the things a husband might have done, but he did something strange. He said quietly, "Good night, E," and he left the library. She sat in the leather chair another hour. She did not move. She thought about a great many things. About Sophia Russo, who had died in a street on Taylor Street. About Danny Russo, who was no relation, who had followed her along the lakefront. About her mother, who was coming home in 4 days. About her father, who had lost 10 pounds in a month. About Isabella Marchetti, who had said Roman is not a bad man and meant it. And about her husband, who had called her E twice now. Once on a receipt, once out loud. It was not, she reminded herself sternly, it was not anything. It was a nickname. It was a monosyllable. It was almost nothing at all. Almost, she thought, almost nothing at all. She went to bed early. She did not sleep well. Around 2 a.m, she heard him moving in his study down the hall, a drawer opening, a chair creaking, the muffled sound of his voice on the phone. And she lay in the dark and listened, and she thought, he is awake because he is scared for me. That is a sentence I did not have 4 weeks ago. That is a sentence I have now. She closed her eyes against the dark, and she slept finally a thin, shallow sleep with bad dreams in it. A street, a bench, a man with letters on his hand, and somewhere in the background, very far away, the sound of a woman laughing like a hyena, warm and wrong and impossible to forget. The next morning, she woke up to the sound of Marta vacuuming in the hallway. And for a moment, before she remembered anything, she was just a woman in a warm bed in a big apartment on a bright spring morning. And then she remembered. All of it. The wedding, the debt, the nursery, the coffee shop, Isabella, her father, the bench, the tattoo. She remembered, and she got out of bed. She got dressed. She went to the kitchen. Roman had already left. He had left, according to Marta, at 5 a.m, but he had left a folded piece of paper on the counter beside her coffee cup. She opened it. In his firm, square handwriting, it said simply, "Stay inside today. I'll be home by 7. We eat together. R." She read it 3 times. Then she folded it up and she put it in her pocket, and she drank her coffee, hot, this time, for once. And she sat at the counter in her husband's kitchen in her husband's apartment, and she waited for 7 o'clock, which felt, for reasons she was not prepared to examine, like a long time to wait and not a long time at all. 7 o'clock came and went. At 7:15, Alara stopped pretending she wasn't watching the clock. At 7:30, she went to the window and looked down at Lakeshore Drive, at the small, slow-moving lights of the cars 40 stories below, and she thought about how stupid it was, how stupid and how new, to be waiting for a man to come home for dinner. At 7:42, the elevator chimed. Marta got to the foyer before she did. Alara heard their voices, low, Roman's and the housekeeper's, and then footsteps coming down the hallway. He appeared in the doorway of the kitchen with his coat still on, his hair a little wet from the rain that had started around 6, and his face was tight in a way she was learning to read. "I'm sorry I'm late." "You're not that late." "I said 7. It's 7:42, Roman. It's not a felony." He almost smiled. He shrugged his coat off and handed it to Marta without looking at her, which was not rudeness, Alara had learned. It was a thing men like him did, a reflex from childhood, expensive boys who had been handed coats by housekeepers since before they could tie their own shoes. He saw her watching him do it, and something in his face registered the watching, and he turned to Marta and said, "Thank you, Marta." And Marta blinked visibly and said, "You're welcome, Mr. DeLuca," and carried the coat away. Alara raised an eyebrow. "What?" he said. "Nothing. Say it." "I will. Eventually." "Sit." Marta made lasagna. She's been stirring it since 4, and if we don't eat it in the next 10 minutes, she's going to cry. He sat. He washed his hands in the kitchen sink, which again was new. He had always gone to the powder room before. And he sat at the counter, and Marta served them both lasagna on heavy white plates, and for the first 2 minutes nobody spoke. Then Roman set down his fork. "Danny Russo is dead." Alara's own fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "What?" "Somebody found him this morning in a car in a parking lot in Bridgeport. Shot twice. The news is going to have it by 10 tonight. I wanted to tell you before you saw it. She set the fork down slowly. Roman. I didn't do it. Roman. I did not do it, Alara. I told you I wouldn't. I didn't. I spent last night on the phone with 4 different people, and all of them will say the same thing. I did not touch Danny Russo. I did not send anybody to touch Danny Russo. Then who? That's the question. He picked up his fork again. He looked at his plate like he was trying to remember what food was. Conti, maybe. Cleaning up a mess before it got seen. That would be the simple answer. He sent Danny to watch my wife. My wife noticed. I noticed. Danny becomes a liability because now he's a face I can point to. So Conti puts him in a car and deals with it. That's one version. What's the other version? The other version is somebody else killed Danny for a reason I don't know yet, to send a message I don't understand yet. And that is the version that is keeping me up at night. She sat with that a minute. Eat your lasagna, Roman. He looked at her. What? Eat your lasagna. Marta's been stirring it since 4. Whatever's happening is going to keep happening whether you eat or not. You look like hell. Eat. He ate. They got through the meal, mostly in silence. Marta, from the other side of the counter, pretended to do a crossword puzzle and was clearly listening to every word. Afterward, Roman helped clear the plates, which was, again, new, which Marta pretended not to notice. And when the kitchen was clean, he turned to Alara and said, "Can we talk?" In the library. She went. He closed the door behind them. He did not sit. He paced, once, twice, along the wall of books, one hand rubbing the back of his neck, the other in his pocket, and Alara sat in the leather chair and watched him and waited. "I want you to leave Chicago for a while," he said. "No." Alara, "No, Roman. Sit down. You're making me seasick." He sat. On the ottoman opposite her chair, so that their knees were almost touching. He was, up close, more tired than she had realized. There was gray at his temples she had not noticed before, and a small cut on his jaw where he had shaved in a hurry. "Listen to me," he said. "I have a house. In Michigan. On a lake up near Harbor Springs. It's quiet. Nobody knows about it except my lawyer and now you. I want you to go up there for a couple of weeks, just until I figure out what Conti is doing. Marta will go with you. I'll send 2 men. You'll have the whole house, the whole lake, a kitchen, books. You can read, you can walk, you can... Roman, I am not going to Michigan." "Why not?" "Because my mother is getting back in 3 days and I told her I would be here. And because if I go up to a lake in Michigan, I am going to lose my mind in about 48 hours. And because I do not want to be the kind of wife who runs." "You're not running. I'm sending you." "It's the same thing." "It is not the same thing." "Roman," she leaned forward, "listen to me. For 3 years you have kept your distance from Vincent Conti because you were afraid he would come after the people you loved, right? You told me that. You said, Isabella said, actually, but it tracks. You said you haven't gone after him because it would start a war, right? Right. So if you send me to Michigan, you have accepted that my life is fragile in exactly the way Sophia's was. You have accepted that I am somebody you love enough to hide. And we are not there, Roman. You and I are not there yet. I am your wife on paper. I am your dinner companion. I am a woman you bought a book for on Printer's Row. I am not a person you love yet. And I do not want to go to Michigan as a person you love yet, because we have not earned that. He stared at her. That is, he said slowly, the strangest argument against leaving town I have ever heard in my life. It's a good argument. I didn't say it wasn't good. She could not help it. She laughed. It was a small laugh, and it surprised her, and when she heard it, she almost put her hand over her mouth like a little girl. Roman looked at her like he had never heard her laugh before, which, she realized, he hadn't. They had been married 36 days, and he had never heard her laugh. Elara, what? If you will not go to Michigan, then I am putting 2 men on you, one at the building, one on you when you go anywhere. I don't care how much you hate it. It is going to happen. You can pick which 2 if you want. You can pick the ones that seem least irritating, but I am not going to watch somebody else. He stopped. She watched him stop. She did not fill the silence. I am not going to watch anybody else get hurt in a street on a Friday night, he finished finally. I am not. I have done that. I will not do it again. So you pick the men, or I pick them, but 2 men are on you starting tomorrow. That is not negotiable. Okay. He looks surprised. Okay? Okay, Roman. I'll take the men. I'm not stupid. I don't want to die because I was making a point about my agency, but I am not leaving. And you are not going to go after Conti either. Not yet. Not until we know more. Elara. Not yet. Swear to me again. You gave me a day. I'm asking for more than a day. He was quiet a long time. I swear. Not yet. Good. He stood up. He looked at her a moment longer. Then he did something she did not expect at all. He leaned down, very slightly, and he put his hand, briefly, lightly, on the crown of her head, the way a man might touch the top of a child's head in passing. It lasted a second and a half. Then it was gone. He left the library without another word. Elara sat on the chair in the lamplit room with the cooled tea and the Alexander Hamilton biography she had never finished, and she realized that her scalp, where his hand had been, was warm. Her mother came back 2 days early. Elara was in the kitchen on the Tuesday morning, drinking coffee in a bathrobe, when Marta appeared in the doorway with an expression Elara had not seen on her before, something between wariness and amusement. Mrs. DeLuca, your mother is in the lobby. Frank just called up. Elara set the coffee down. Mom, she wasn't supposed to be back until Thursday. Frank says she has 2 suitcases and an attitude, ma'am. His words. Elara almost laughed. Send her up, Marta. Yes, ma'am. Nora Vance came off of the elevator like a small, glamorous hurricane. She was wearing a cream-colored traveling suit and a pair of enormous sunglasses she did not take off until she was in the kitchen, and she smelled like airplane coffee and Chanel and very faintly tequila. She looked at her daughter. Her daughter looked at her. Neither of them moved for a second. And then Nora Vance, who had hugged her daughter exactly twice in the last 22 years, once at the Whitmore Hotel before a wedding, and once by the side of a pool when Elara was 8 and had fallen in, opened her arms and said, in a voice that was already breaking, "Come here, baby. Come here." Elara went. They stood in the kitchen and held each other for a long time. Marta, with the dignity of a woman who had seen a great deal, slipped quietly out of the room and closed the swinging door behind her. When they finally stepped apart, Nora's makeup had smeared, which her mother had not allowed to happen in public since 1998, and Elara's nose was running, and they were both laughing a little, the kind of laugh you do when you have been crying. You're early, Elara said. I couldn't stand Diane's ranch one more minute. She does yoga now, like at dawn, on the patio. I drew the line. Mom? I'm back, baby. I'm here. Okay? Sit down. Make me coffee. I have things to tell you, and I need caffeine and a cigarette, and I know you won't let me have the cigarette, so, coffee. Elara made coffee. They sat at the kitchen counter where she had sat with Roman the night before, and Nora Vance wrapped her hands around a white cup, and for the first time in Elara's life, her mother looked her full in the face and did not look away. Your father, Nora began, is not a bad man. Let me finish. Elara. Let me finish, please. I have been practicing this on a plane for 4 hours. Let me get through it. Okay, your father is not a bad man. He's a weak man. Those are different things. I need you to understand the difference before I tell you the rest, because the rest is going to sound bad. And if you don't understand that he is weak and not bad, you're going to hate him. And I want to be very careful that you hate him for the right things. Okay, Mom, I'm listening. Your father started losing money in 2008. Everybody did. But your father did not. He did not know how to lose money. Some men know how to lose. Your grandfather, my father, he knew how to lose. He lost the dry cleaners in 1979, and he opened a hardware store in 1980, and he was fine. Arthur does not have that in him. Arthur loses money, and it is like something cracks. He can't tell anybody. He can't even tell me. He has to pretend the money is still there. And when you have to pretend the money is still there, you start taking money from places you should not take it from. I know this part, Mom. He told me last week. He told you that much? He told me about the fund. He told me about Uncle Paul. He told me about Charlie Hughes. He told me he was going to prison if he didn't sell me. Nora went very still. He said he was going to prison if he didn't sell you. Yes, baby. Yes, Mom. Nora took a long drink of coffee. Her hand was not shaking. Her face was not moving. But something behind her eyes had gone briefly dark. Okay, Nora said. Okay. Then you know the frame of it. What you don't know, what he will not have told you because he does not know how to tell you, is who the money actually went to, the fund he took from Alara. He told you about the fund. Did he tell you whose fund? Alara shook her head. It was Salvatore De Luca's. Alara set down her coffee. What? The money your father took and got in trouble for, and then had to cover by borrowing from Salvatore. That money, originally, was already Salvatore's. Salvatore was the initial investor in the fund. Your father did not borrow from a random loan shark, Alara. Your father took money from a fund Salvatore had put his name on, and then he turned around and borrowed more money from Salvatore to paper over the first theft. And Salvatore knew all of it the whole time. Salvatore has been running this for 5 years, maybe longer. Why? Because Salvatore De Luca wanted you, sweetheart. Or more precisely, he wanted you for Roman, and he had been building up the leverage to get you for 5 years. Because Salvatore has been looking at his son drink himself to death for 3 years, and he decided in his dying old world head that what Roman needed was a wife from a clean family to bring him back. And you were the one he picked. Not because you were the prettiest or the youngest or any of it. Because your father was stealable. Your father was the pressure point. Alara could not speak. I know, baby, I know. All of it was on purpose. All of it. He picked you out of a lineup when I think you were 22. He saw a picture of you at some charity thing. He told Arthur he thought you were a nice girl. He told Arthur this 5 years ago, Alara. And when Arthur needed money that fall, the money was there. And the fund was there, and the trap was there, and your father walked into it with his eyes open because he thought he could get out, and he couldn't get out. And by the time I figured out what was happening, the wedding was 8 weeks away, and you were already engaged. When did you figure it out? January. 3 weeks before the wedding. Yes. And you didn't tell me. No. Why? Nora set the coffee down. She looked at her hands. They were thin hands, veined with the bracelet of rings she had worn since Alara was a child. Because I am the weak one too, Alara. Because your father would have destroyed me, financially, publicly. He would have thrown me out with a suitcase and a reputation, and I would not have survived it. I have told myself for a month that that is the reason. But it is not the whole reason. The whole reason is that I was afraid, and it was easier to lie, and I am going to be sorry for that until I am dead. Do you understand me? This is the part I am apologizing for. The rest I will help you navigate. But this part, this is mine. I let you walk up that aisle and I knew, baby. I knew, and I let you. Alara was crying. She did not know when it had started. Her mother was crying too. They were sitting across from each other at a kitchen counter on the 40th floor of a gangster's penthouse, and they were crying. And Nora reached across the counter and took both of Alara's hands in both of hers. I am so sorry, Alara. I'm so sorry. Mom, I am so sorry. Mom, stop. Stop. Her mother stopped. She did not let go of her hands. Mom, I don't know how to process this. I don't. I'm going to need a month or a year to process this. But I want to say one thing first, okay? Okay. You came back. I came back. That is right now the only thing I am capable of thinking about. You came back. You were in Santa Fe and I called you and you cried on the phone and you came back 2 days early with sunglasses on and a hangover, right? That's accurate, yeah. That counts, Mom. I'm not saying it's enough. I'm saying it counts. Nora Vance put her face in her hands and she sobbed. Once, hard, like a woman releasing a breath she had been holding for 22 years. Alara sat and held one of her mother's hands and let her cry. And after a minute, her mother said into her palms, Okay, I'm okay. Okay, Mom. Where's your gangster? Alara laughed, startled. At work, I think. Is he terrible to you? No, no, he isn't. Is he good to you? No, Mom, he isn't that either. Not yet. He's something in between. He's trying. I think he's trying. I don't know if he knows he's trying, but he is. Huh. What? That's better than I was expecting, actually. Yeah, me too. Nora looked around the kitchen like she was seeing it for the first time. This is a very nice apartment, baby. I know. Expensive. Probably. I'm going to need a drink. Do you have tequila in this apartment? I have no idea. Marta? Marta, who had been in the hallway, came back into the kitchen with the speed of a woman who had been waiting for her cue. There is tequila, Mrs. Vance. Would you like it neat or rocks, salt, lime if you have it? You are a saint, Marta. Yes, Mrs. Vance. Alara watched her mother laugh at something Marta said, and she thought, if I had to pick the stranger and the traitor in this room, it would not have been the housekeeper and the mother 3 weeks ago, and it is now. That was a Tuesday. By Wednesday night, Nora was installed in the guest suite at the east end of the apartment. 2 hallways from the nursery, Alara still had not opened again. Roman came home from wherever he went at 9:30 on Wednesday night and found his mother-in-law in his kitchen in a silk robe holding a glass of his tequila, and he stopped in the doorway like a man who had walked into the wrong meeting. Mrs. Vance? Roman. I didn't know you were coming. I know you didn't. I came early to avoid being a problem. I'll be out of your hair in a week. Sit down. Have you eaten? Marta's put your plate in the oven. Roman looked at Alara. Alara shrugged, a small shrug. A shrug that said, this is my life now, apparently. Roman sat. He ate. Nora Vance asked him 3 questions. One about the building, one about Chicago weather, and one, very mild, about whether he had siblings. He answered all 3. On the 4th, he set down his fork, looked at Alara's mother, and said, Mrs. Vance? Yes, Roman. I know what my father did to your family. A pause. All right. I did not know it when I agreed to marry your daughter. I found out after. Not all of it. Some of it. The part about the fund, I would like to tell you that I was ignorant. I was not as ignorant as I should have been. I am not asking you to forgive me for that. I am telling you that I know and that I will be working on it for however long it takes. That is what I want to say. In front of Alara. Nora was very still. That's a speech, Roman DeLuca. Yes, ma'am. Did you practice it? On the elevator up. Huh. She drank her tequila. She set the glass down. She looked at her son-in-law, the gangster her daughter had been sold to, and she did a thing Alara had not seen her mother do in years. She nodded once, a small nod, respectful, and she said, All right, Roman, all right. And that was all. They ate. They talked about Chicago weather. Roman asked Marta to put on coffee. Nora Vance, who had been staying at a ranch with a yoga-doing heiress in Santa Fe 3 days ago, sat in the kitchen of a mob apartment and drank coffee with her daughter and her daughter's husband, and nobody cried and nobody yelled and nobody ran, and at 11 she went to bed. Alara and Roman stayed up. They went, without discussing it, into the library. Alara sat in the leather chair. Roman sat on the ottoman again, closer this time, though she did not think he had noticed that he had done it. The lamp was on. Outside the window, rain was falling again, fine and steady. Your mother, he said. I know. She is not what I expected. Neither did I, it turns out. He nodded slowly. He was looking at his hands. She was looking at his hands, too. They were large square hands with a knuckle on the right that had been broken at some point and not set correctly. She had not noticed before. Alara. Yes. Vincent Conti sent a message this afternoon. She lifted her head. What kind of message? He sent a white rose to my office. No note. Just a single white rose in a box. The messenger was a courier, paid in cash, can't trace it. What does a white rose mean? In the way my family used to do things, in the old country, a white rose at a funeral meant peace, and a white rose at somebody's office meant the opposite. It meant a warning. It meant, I know where you work. I know where your people are. I am coming. The men who did that thing are all dead now. The tradition isn't really the tradition anymore. When Vincent Conti sends a white rose, he is doing it on purpose. He is telling me he is a student of history. Okay. I heard you. What do we do? Roman looked at her. In the lamplight, his gray eyes were almost black. There is a meeting the day after tomorrow. A sit-down at a restaurant called Pescatores on the south side. It was arranged before the Rose came. It is an attempt, by people on both sides, to prevent a war. My father used to go to these. He is not well enough now. I have to go in his place. Vincent will be there. You will be in a room with the man who killed Sophia. Yes. Roman. I am not going to do anything, Alara. I know what you're going to say. I am not going to do anything. It is a sit-down. There are rules. Everyone comes unarmed. There are 2 men from each side. There is a neutral. An old man who has been doing these since my grandfather was alive. Nothing happens at a sit-down. Nothing is permitted to happen. If I touch him, everyone at the table dies. That is how it works. I'm going to go. I'm going to sit across from him. I'm going to hear what he wants, and I'm going to come home. Take me. He stared at her. No. Roman. No, Alara, absolutely not. You don't go to a sit-down. Women don't. Our women don't go to those. Ever. It is not how it is done. It would be seen as an insult or as a statement or... Exactly. What? Exactly, Roman. It would be a statement. It would tell him that I am not a secret. It would tell him that I am not hidden. It would tell him that if he sends a man to follow me on a lakefront, my husband brings me into the room. It would take away the only piece of leverage he has, which is the threat of coming through me to get to you. Do you hear what I am saying? Alara, do you hear me? Yes, I hear you. That is not how it is done. Then this is how it is done now. You said yourself last week. You said things are changing. The tradition isn't really the tradition anymore. So change it. Let me come. Not as your shield, not as your message, as your wife. Because if we are going to be a real thing, Roman, and I am not sure yet whether we are, but if we are going to have any chance at being a real thing, then you cannot go sit across from the man who killed your fiancé without me in the room. You will come back crooked. I know you. I already know you that much. I am telling you. Take me. He was quiet a long, long time. My father would lose his mind. Your father is dying, Roman. Let him lose his mind. Tommy would quit. Tommy loves you. Tommy won't quit. It is not safe, Alara. It is not safe for you either. We can be not safe together. That's what marriage is. That is not, he said, almost laughing. That is not what marriage is, Alara. It is the marriage we got. He looked at her. He looked at her for so long that she thought he was going to say no. She thought he was going to stand up and walk out, and in the morning tell her that she was going to Michigan, and he was going to Pescatores alone, and the conversation was closed. He did not. He said very quietly, "Okay, E. Okay? Okay. You come. You sit next to me. You do not speak unless I tell you to. You do what I say the entire time we are there. That is my condition." Agreed. Do not make me regret this. I won't. Yes, you will, but do it anyway. She laughed, just once, a low, surprised laugh. He almost smiled. Outside, the rain kept falling. Somewhere in the apartment, her mother was sleeping in a guest suite, snoring very lightly, a detail Alara had not discovered until that night, and which had made her absurdly happy. Somewhere on the south side, a man named Vincent Conti was perhaps also awake, turning a white rose in his fingers, thinking about a woman he had heard about only in passing 3 weeks ago. And in the library of a penthouse on the 40th floor, a husband and a wife who had been sold to each other for $18 million sat in a lamplit room and looked at each other, and did not kiss, and did not touch, and planned a dangerous thing together as if they were a team, which, Alara realized with a kind of quiet shock, they were starting, very cautiously, to be. He stood up at midnight. He said good night. He stopped at the door. E. Yes, Roman. Thank you. For what? For not letting me go alone. He left. She stayed in the chair. She turned off the lamp eventually and sat in the dark a long time, watching the rain trace lines on the window, and she did not even once cry. The rain was still falling on Friday morning when Alara stood in front of the long mirror in her closet and tried, for the 5th time, to pick a dress. She had never dressed for a sit-down before. She did not know what women wore to sit-downs because, as Roman had made a point of explaining twice at breakfast, women did not go to them. She had decided, finally, on a black wool dress that fell to her knees and a pair of low-heeled boots. No jewelry, except her wedding ring. Her hair pulled back, her mouth clean of lipstick. She looked in the mirror like a woman going to a funeral. She figured that was about right. Her mother found her there a little before noon. Nora Vance was in a dove-gray cashmere sweater and jeans, which was the most casual outfit Alara had seen on her mother since 2002, and she had a cup of coffee in her hand and an expression on her face that Alara had not quite seen before either. "You look like a Kennedy at a graveside," Nora said. "I feel like one. Are you sure about this, baby?" "No." "Okay." "But I'm going." "Okay." Nora stepped into the closet. She set the coffee down on a shelf. She reached up and fixed a pin in her daughter's hair that did not need fixing, the way mothers fix things that do not need fixing, because they do not know what else to do with their hands. "Alara." "Yeah, Mom." "If something happens today, don't. If something happens today and it goes bad, I want you to know, Mom, let me finish. If it goes bad, I want you to know that I am proud of you. That is all. I am proud of you. I have not been much of a mother, baby. I know that. But I'm proud of you, and I'm not going anywhere. And if you come home tonight, I'm going to make you a very bad pot of chicken soup, and we are going to watch an old movie in your husband's library. And I need you to come home, Alara. Please. Please come home." Alara looked at her mother. She kissed her on the cheek. She said, "Okay, Mom. Okay." And she went to meet her husband in the foyer. Roman was wearing a black suit. He had not worn a black suit since the wedding. He had a white shirt, no tie, no overcoat. His hair was combed. His jaw was clean. He looked, Alara thought, like a man on his way to confession, or a man on his way to war, and she did not know which, and she suspected he did not know either. Tommy was there too. Tommy with the broken nose, who had been at the head table at the wedding, and one other man, slightly younger, whose name she learned was Paolo. Paolo had a scar under his eye, in a very gentle voice, and when Roman introduced him, he said, "Ma'am," and gave a small bow, like an old-world bow, like a man greeting a priest's mother. She liked him immediately. She suspected that was a dangerous thing to like. "Ready?" Roman said. "Ready. You do not speak unless I ask you to." "I know." "You do not look at Vincent. You look at the wall, or the table, or at Tommy, not at Vincent. If you look at him, you give him a tell, and I don't want him to have any tells yet." "Okay. If something goes wrong, if anything at all happens, any sound, any movement, any shift, you get down, on the floor, under the table. Tommy will get you out. Tommy knows the back way out of Pescatores. You do not wait for me. You do not look for me. You go with Tommy. Are we clear?" "Yes." "Say it." "If anything happens, I go under the table, and I leave with Tommy, and I do not wait." "Good." He looked at her. For a second, just a second, his face was not the flat face. It was something else, something tight and frightened, and, underneath the fright, something that was very nearly tender. He lifted his hand like he was going to touch her shoulder, her face, something. And then he did not. He dropped his hand. He said, "Let's go." They went. Pescatores was a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood Alara had never had reason to visit, tucked between a funeral home and a long empty storefront with soaped-over windows. It was the kind of place that looked closed from the outside even when it was open. A red canopy over the door, a faded painting of a fish on a wooden sign. Inside, it smelled of garlic and old wine and older men. They were the second party to arrive. A neutral, a tiny white-haired man named Mr. Carminelli, who had to have been 85 years old and who moved with the careful deliberation of a man who had been shot at once and had not forgotten, met them at the door. He looked at Alara a long moment, and then he looked at Roman, and he lifted one thin eyebrow. He did not speak. "My wife," Roman said. "She comes in." Mr. Carminelli considered this. Then he shrugged, very slowly, a shrug of a man who had been seeing traditions broken for 60 years and could no longer summon the energy to object. "As you say, Mr. DeLuca." They were seated at a long wooden table in the back room, red-checked tablecloth, a single candle, unlit, 4 chairs on one side, 4 on the other, and at the head, 1 chair for Mr. Carminelli. Alara sat to Roman's left. Tommy sat to Roman's right. Paolo sat beyond Tommy. The empty side of the table faced the door. They waited. It was 7 minutes. It felt like 7 hours. Nobody spoke. Roman's hands were flat on the table, fingers spread, palms down. Tommy was very still. Paolo was looking with great interest at a small water stain on the ceiling. Alara, in her black dress, kept her eyes on the grain of the wood in front of her and breathed through her nose, slow and deep, and counted to 10, and then counted to 10 again. The door opened. 4 men came in. The one in the front was older than Alara had expected. 55, maybe 60, balding, in a dark gray suit that was a little too big for him. He had the softest, saddest face she had ever seen on a man, which was not at all what she had prepared for. His eyes were wet and brown, his mouth turned down. He looked, she thought, like a man who had been in grief a long time and had learned, unfortunately, to function inside of it. This was Vincent Conti. He stopped inside the doorway when he saw her. He did not say anything. He just stopped. He looked at her, not with any particular expression, just a long, careful look, the way a man looks at an unexpected piece of furniture in a room he thought he knew. Then he looked at Roman, and Roman looked at him, and some silent sentence passed between them that Alara was not equipped to translate. Vincent Conti sat down. His 3 men sat down. "Mr. De Luca," Vincent said. His voice was not what she had expected either. It was low and a little hoarse, like a voice that had done a lot of shouting 20 years ago and had not entirely recovered. "Mr. Conti, you brought your wife." "I did." "That's not how it's done." "It's how I'm doing it." Vincent Conti considered this. He nodded once, slowly. He did not seem angry. He did not seem anything. "Mrs. De Luca." Alara did not look at him. She kept her eyes on the wood, but she inclined her head just slightly, a small polite nod. Mr. Carminelli, at the head of the table, lit the candle with a match from his pocket. That was the signal, apparently, that the sit-down had begun. "We are here," Mr. Carminelli said, "to speak and to listen, and to see if we can leave this room without a war. Mr. Conti, you asked for this. You have the first word." Vincent folded his hands on the table in front of him. "Mr. De Luca," he said, "I'm going to say something, and I'm going to ask you to hear me out before you respond. Can I have that?" "You can have that. 3 years and 7 months ago, men who worked for me killed a woman you were going to marry. I did not order it. I want to say that first. I want to say that in this room, in front of Mr. Carminelli, on my mother's soul, I did not order the hit on Sofia Russo. Giancarlo Bellini ordered it. Giancarlo is dead. I killed him myself 6 weeks after it happened because I could not have a man under my roof who had shot a woman on Taylor Street without my permission. You may have heard that he had a heart attack in a hotel room in Florida. He did not have a heart attack. That is the truth. You have not heard it from me before. I am telling you now." Roman's hands, on this table, did not move. "I do not know if that means anything to you," Vincent continued. His voice was very even. "I'm not expecting it to mean anything to you. I am telling you because it is true, and because you have waited 3 years to sit across a table from me, and because I have waited 3 years for you to. I wanted to say it to your face before anything else." "Why now?" Roman said. Vincent Conti took a long breath. "Because I have been watching you for 3 years. Since it happened, I have been watching you and I have been waiting for you to come for me. And you never did. And I started thinking about you, about Sofia, about why you did not come. Go on. I could not figure it out. For a long time. I thought, maybe he is building, maybe he is waiting, maybe he is smart. Then you married, and I thought, he has moved on. He has accepted. And then he glanced at Alara. Just a flick of the eyes, back to Roman. And then I had some of my people look. Not to do anything, to look. I sent Danny Russo, because Danny was a watcher, that was all. And Danny watched, and Danny called me, and Danny said, "Boss, the wife walks alone." That was what Danny said. She walks alone. She goes to coffee shops alone. She sits at a pier by herself in the afternoons. Her husband does not go with her. Her husband does not go near her. And that's when I understood. I understood that you were not waiting to come for me. You were nursing a wound. You had put this woman in your house, and then you had not lived with her. I know what that looks like, Mr. DeLuca. I know what it looks like when a man is still in mourning 3 years on. Mas. Roman did not speak. I am a widower, Vincent Conti said. You did not know this. It is not something we publicize in my family. My wife Angela died 4 years ago this June. A stroke in her sleep. She was 51. We had been married 30 years. I have never since that night slept in our bed. I sleep in a guest room. I cannot walk past the door of our bedroom without wanting to sit down on the floor in the hallway. I am telling you this so that you understand that I know, personally, what it is to still be in that room when the door has been closed for a long time. And I saw you, Mr. DeLuca. I saw you in that room. And I thought, very stupidly perhaps, but I thought, this man and I are the same kind of broken. Roman still did not speak, but Alara, beside him, heard him exhale. Then Danny died, Roman said at last. Yes. Did you do that? Yes, I did. I will tell you why. Danny had begun, in the last year, to freelance. He had been doing small things for Salvatore. Little errands, little pieces of information sold for envelopes of cash. I did not know this until 3 weeks ago. When I found out that Danny had been watching your wife for me, I began to wonder who else knew Danny was watching your wife. I asked Danny. Danny lied. I asked again. Danny lied again. I had a man look at Danny's phone. Your father was in Danny's phone, Mr. DeLuca. Your dying father has been paying Danny for a year to send him pictures of you. Pictures of your apartment. Pictures of your wife, after you were married. And I believe, though I cannot prove, that your father paid Danny to follow your wife on that pier, on that afternoon, specifically so that you would see the tattoo, and specifically so that you would think it was me. The room went very still. You are lying, Roman said. The words were flat. They were not a question. I am not. I have Danny's phone. I have the photographs he sent. I have the cash drops, which I photographed from the inside of the drop car. I can show you. I brought copies. They are in an envelope in my jacket, which I will lay on the table when I am asked to. I did not kill Danny because he was working for me. I killed him because he was working for me and your father, and a man who sells both directions does not get to keep breathing in this town, and that is how it has always been. Why would my father do that? Vincent Conti looked very gently at Alara. Mrs. DeLuca, he said, I am sorry to ask this in front of you. Ask it. He turned back to Roman. Your father is dying, he knows this. His doctors have told him, I believe, 6 weeks, perhaps less. He has one unfinished thing on his list. He wants a war. He wants it specifically with me. He has wanted it for 20 years, for reasons that go back to 2003, reasons that are not your reasons and not your wife's reasons. When Sophia was killed, he thought he would finally get his war. He did not get it. He blamed you. He has never forgiven you. And now he is dying, and he has calculated, correctly, actually, that the one way to get his war before he goes is to make his son believe that Vincent Conti has come for the second woman. That pasa siguiente. Alara felt Roman's hand beside her on the table close into a fist so tight she saw the tendons stand out. He did not move it. He did not lift it. But the knuckles went white. He set my wife up, Roman said. He set your wife up. He used her. Yes, Mr. DeLuca. He used her. I am very sorry to be the one telling you. I thought about not telling you. I thought about letting you come for me, getting it over with because I am old and I'm tired and part of me would not mind getting it over with. But I looked at your wife walking alone in my photographs, Mr. DeLuca, and I thought, no, not again. Not another one. So I asked Mr. Carminelli to arrange this, and here we are. Mr. Carminelli nodded slowly from the head of the table. Roman said nothing for a very long time. Alara, who had been told not to speak, forgot and spoke. Mr. Conti. His soft, sad eyes turned to her. Yes, Mrs. DeLuca. May I see the photographs? Roman turned his head to look at her. His face was a very complicated thing to see. She did not look back at him. She kept her eyes on Vincent Conti, because the instruction about not looking at him had become, she felt, inoperative. Vincent reached slowly into his jacket. He laid a manila envelope on the table. He slid it across. Mr. Carminelli, at the head of the table, reached out and inspected it, as was apparently his job, and then he passed it to Roman. Roman opened it. He went through the photographs one at a time. Alara looked over his shoulder. They were not dramatic. That was what struck her. They were grainy, taken from across streets and from parked cars. A picture of her, in her coat, walking into the coffee shop on Oak. A picture of her on the pier. A picture of her laughing with Isabella in the window of the coffee shop, taken from the sidewalk. A picture of Roman's apartment building, from the street. A picture of the lobby, of Frank at his desk. And underneath the photographs, a small stack of printed out screenshots. Text messages. The phone number at the top of them was a number Alara knew. She knew it by heart. It was her father's second phone, the one he used for, as he had called it her whole life, business that wasn't business. The texts were short. They were businesslike. They said, "Need one of her at the pier, clear face if you can." They said, "Don't let her see you." They said, "My son-in-law needs to see your hand. Don't pull the sleeve down." Alara felt something inside her give way. It was a small, quiet giving way. It was not a scream. It was not a collapse. It was the sensation she had had once when she was a little girl and her mother's favorite vase had tipped on a shelf, and she had watched it fall, and she had known in the air that the vase was going to break, and she had been unable to reach out and catch it. And there had been, in the long half-second of the fall, not panic, but a kind of terrible clarity. Oh, it is breaking. It has been going to break this whole time. It is only now that I am seeing it. Her father. Her father. Not Salvatore, the old ghoul in the wheelchair. Not Salvatore, whom she had wanted to hate more than anyone. Arthur Vance, who had sold her for $18 million, had also sold her for a war. Had used her face, her coat, her pier, her ordinary afternoon to try to steer his son-in-law into a killing, and had done it while dying himself, on purpose, running out the clock, trying to leave behind one last wound in a family he had already wounded. She realized she had put a hand on the table. She realized her palm was flat on the wood. She realized Roman was looking at her. "Alara, I'm okay. Alara, I'm okay, Roman. I'm just sitting here." Vincent Conti, across the table, softly said, "I am very sorry, Mrs. DeLuca. I really am. Thank you, Mr. Conti." There was a long silence. Mr. Carminelli, at the head of the table, watched them all with his watery old eyes and waited. "Mr. Conti," Roman said finally. "Yes, if I'm understanding you correctly, you are telling me that if I go home tonight and I do nothing, if I let my father die the way he is going to die, if I do not start a war, then you and I are done. We are done, Mr. DeLuca. I will not come for you. My sons will not come for you. The thing that happened 3 years and 7 months ago, on my soul and on my wife's soul, I do not want it happening again. I am old. You are young. You have a wife. I would like you to use her better than you have been. That is what I would like. I did not come here to tell you that, but I am telling you anyway, because I am in a room with her, and because she is not a weapon for your father. She is a person." Batun. He looked at Alara again, just for a second. "You have nice bones," he said, oddly, almost gently. "Don't break them on anything my business would make you break them on." It was, Alara realized, the same sentence Isabella had said to her in the ballroom of the Whitmore, the same exact sentence. She thought, nice bones. Is that what gangsters say in this town when they mean God bless you? She almost laughed. She did not. Roman closed the envelope. He looked at Vincent Conti for a long moment. "Mr. Conti." "Yes, Mr. DeLuca. I have spent 3 years and 7 months hating you. I know. I am going to need some time to unlearn that. I understand. I may not fully unlearn it. I understand that too. But I am not going to come for you. I am telling you that here, in front of Mr. Carminelli, in front of my wife, in front of your men, I am not going to come for you. The matter is closed. The war does not happen. Sophia is where she is. I do not get her back. Going to your funeral does not bring her back. I understand that. I have understood it for a long time, and I have been very tired of understanding it. Vincent Conti nodded slowly. Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Do not thank me. All right. Mr. Carminelli, at the head of the table, put his palms flat on the tablecloth and pushed himself, with some difficulty, to his feet. The matter, he said, in the old quavering voice, is closed. The sit-down is ended. Both parties leave in peace. And that was it. Elara did not understand afterward how it could have been that simple. She had been braced for a door to slam open, for gunfire, for a line of men with rifles in the alley, for Roman to go over the table, for Tommy to draw a gun he had not been supposed to bring. None of that happened. Vincent Conti stood up. His men stood up. Vincent buttoned his too large suit jacket. He came around the table, slowly, his hands visible, in the traditional way, and he held out his hand to Roman. Roman looked at the hand. For a second, Elara thought he would not take it. Then he did. It was the shortest handshake she had ever seen. It was perhaps a half-second. It was the handshake of two men who had agreed not to kill each other and had agreed on nothing else. Mrs. DeLuca, Vincent said, turning to her. Mr. Conti. Go home, Mrs. DeLuca. Make your husband eat something. He is too thin. All of you DeLuca men get too thin when you are grieving. It is a bad family trait. I will. He left. His men left. The door closed behind them. Mr. Carminelli made the sign of something old over the candle and then blew it out, and the room smelled of a snuffed wick and garlic and old wood, and Elara Vance DeLuca let out a breath she had been holding, she suspected, for most of an hour. Roman was very quiet on the ride home. He sat in the back of the car with her. Tommy drove. Paolo was in the passenger seat. Nobody spoke for a long time. Outside the window, Chicago rolled past. Row houses, shuttered bars, the viaduct under the rail line, a girl in a jean jacket walking a dog. And Elara watched all of it and thought about her father. She thought about him a great deal. Roman. Yeah. I want to go to my father's house. Now? Now. He did not argue. He leaned forward to Tommy and said, To Arthur's, Lake Forest. Tommy looked in the rearview mirror at Elara. She nodded. Tommy turned the car around. They drove north. The rain had cleared and the light was a thin gold falling sideways through the trees along the expressway. By the time they reached Lake Forest, it was almost 5 o'clock. And the big old house on the tree-lined street, the house Elara had grown up in, the house where she had skinned her knees on the flagstones and hidden her first bad report card under the porch, looked the same as it always had. Gray stone, green shutters, a porch light on, and a single lamp in the front window. Her father's car was in the driveway. She got out alone. She told Roman to wait in the car. He did not argue that either. He said only, if you need me, I am here. I will be in this car. Do not go anywhere alone. Come get me if you need to. She nodded. She walked up the flagstones. She let herself in with her old key, which still worked. Her father was in the den, in his armchair, with a glass of something amber in his hand and the television on low. He was alone. He had lost more weight. He looked up when she came in. He did not stand up. He looked at her face and he understood. You know, he said. I know. How? Vincent Conti. He gave Roman the phone records, the pictures, the texts. I saw your handwriting in a text message, Dad. I saw where you wrote my son-in-law needs to see your hand. Arthur Vance nodded slowly. He did not protest. He did not deny. He looked at the television where a pair of men in blazers were silently arguing about a basketball game, and he said very quietly, I thought if he took Conti out, he would be a man again. I thought he would stop drinking. I thought my grandchildren would be born to a man and not a ghost. That is what I thought, Elara. I understand how it sounds. I am telling you what I thought. Your grandchildren. Yours. I am not pregnant, Dad. But you will be. Why do you think I will be? He looked at her then. His old face in the television light was rueful and strange. Because you love him, he said. Don't you? She did not answer that. She did not know the answer. Dad. Yes. You used me. Yes. You used my face. You used my afternoons, Dad. My ordinary afternoons, walking to a coffee shop. You turned them into bait. Yes. You wanted him to kill a man because you thought it would fix him so that I would have a husband and you would have grandchildren and it would all be, what, Dad? Tidy? Before you died? Something like that. I don't know what to do with that, Dad. I don't know what to do with the man who loves his daughter so badly that he turned her into a trap. I don't have a name for what that is. Neither do I, sweetheart. She stood in the doorway of the den a long time. He sat in the chair. Neither of them moved. Then she said the thing she had not known, until that moment she was going to say. I'm going to forgive you, Dad. He looked up sharply. Elara, don't. Not because you deserve it. Not because you have earned it. Because I am not going to spend the rest of my life carrying it. I watched Roman carry Sophia for 3 years and 7 months, and it almost killed him, and it almost killed me, and I am not going to carry you around the same way. You are dying. I don't have the stomach to hate a dying man on top of everything else, so I'm going to forgive you. Not today. It's going to take a while. It's going to take the rest of your life, probably, which I understand is not long. But I'm going to because carrying this will make me into a woman I do not want to be, and I have already become too many women I did not want to be this year. Her father began to cry. He did not make any noise. He just sat in his armchair, and the tears ran down his old face, and he nodded, once, twice, like a man agreeing with something he had heard from very far away. I don't deserve that, Elara. You don't? But I get to give it to whoever I want. That's the only part of this that ended up being mine. She walked across the den. She bent down. She kissed him on the forehead. His skin smelled the same as it had always smelled, aftershave and old paper. And for a moment she was 6 years old, and he was the tallest thing in the world. And then she was 26 again, and he was a small man in a chair. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, baby. She walked out. She did not look back. She got into the car. Roman took one look at her face and did not ask. Tommy drove. They did not speak the entire way home. It was well after dark when the elevator chimed in the foyer. Her mother came out of the library before they had their coats off. She had been pacing, apparently, for hours. And when she saw Elara's face, she stopped and did not ask, the same way Roman had not asked. Nora simply walked over and put her arms around her daughter and held her, right there in the hallway, with Roman standing 3 feet away with his coat still half on. Come on, baby, come on. Mom, I know. Mom, it was him the whole time. It was him. I know, baby, I know. Come on. They ate Marta's chicken soup in the library. All 3 of them. Her mother had not lied. She had made a pot. It was not a good pot, as Nora had predicted, but it was warm and it was salty, and nobody mentioned that Nora had overcooked the celery. They sat on the floor, on the rug, with bowls in their hands, and Roman did not say much, and Nora filled the silences with small stories, and Elara just listened. And somewhere around 10 o'clock she fell asleep on the rug with her head on her mother's lap. And when she woke up, a blanket had been put over her, and the lamp had been turned low, and Roman was sitting across from her in the leather chair, watching the lake through the rain-beaded window, saying nothing. Where's my mom? I put her to bed. She said tell you she loves you. She also said tell you her back hurts. Elara laughed, very softly. What time is it? Almost 2. Have you slept? No. Roman. Yeah. She sat up. She kept the blanket around her shoulders. She looked at him across the small lamplit space between them. Come sit on the rug. He looked at her. Then he got up, and he came and sat on the rug, not touching her, close enough that their shoulders almost met, in the way their shoulders had almost met across a dozen meals at a counter. His black suit jacket was gone. His white shirt was wrinkled. His hair was a little flat where he had been leaning against the chair. Elara. What he did. Your father. What he did. I am not going to. Don't. I want to. Roman. If you tell me right now that you are going to go back and kill my father for what he did today, I swear to you, I will leave you tonight. I will walk out this door. I do not want another thing to die because of this family. I have had enough. Do you understand me? He looked at her a long moment. Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you. They sat on the rug. The apartment was quiet. Far below them, the city made its small, distant noises. A car horn, a siren 3 blocks away, a garbage truck grinding somewhere along the lake. I want to tell you something, Roman. Okay? I did not want this marriage. I know, E. I hated it. I hated you. For about a month, I hated you so much I thought about how I could legally get out of it and keep my mother's house. I did a lot of math in the dark. I hated you, and I hated my father, and I hated Salvatore, and I hated Sophia, a little, which I have been very ashamed of since I learned who Sophia was. Okay, and now, it is not that I love you. I want to say that. I want to be careful about that word. I do not love you yet, but I am here. I am sitting next to you on a rug in your library at 2 in the morning. I did not go to Michigan. I did not leave you at Pescatores. I did not let you go after my father. Those were choices. Do you understand what I am telling you? I am making choices now, Roman. I am making them on purpose, and I'm choosing to try this with you. I do not know if it will work. I think maybe it will not, but I am telling you that I am choosing it because I'm tired of being chosen by other people. He did not speak. He looked at the rug. Roman, I heard you. Say something. Elara, I am sitting here trying not to cry because I have not cried in front of another human being in 3 years and 7 months, and I am not going to start tonight. Can you give me a minute? Okay? She waited. He breathed. A minute passed. 2. E. Yes. I would like, if it is okay with you, to try to be worth this. Okay. I do not know if I know how yet. I am going to be bad at it for a while. You are going to want to leave. You are going to think this is not going to work, probably more than once. I know. But if you can stay while I learn, I would like to try. Okay, Roman. Okay. Okay. She did not move closer. He did not move closer. It was not that kind of moment. It was the moment before that moment, the moment 2 people have when they both silently agree that later, not tonight, not next week, but later, there is going to be a moment. For now they sat on a rug in a library with her blanket around her shoulders and his sleeves pushed up to his elbows, and they breathed, and the rain on the window made the small, slow sound of a thing settling. Salvatore De Luca died 3 weeks later. It was not a good death. Those rarely are. He was angry at the end, at everyone and everything, and he was particularly angry at his son for, as he called it, in between his oxygen breaths, walking away from the war. Roman sat at his father's bedside anyway, every day, for the last 11 days. He held his father's hand, which his father kept trying to pull away, and he said the same 6 sentences every morning. I am here. I am your son. I love you. I am not going to kill him. It is over. Go easy. On the 11th day, Salvatore finally stopped trying to pull his hand back. And then, a little after 4 in the afternoon, he stopped breathing. Roman sat with him another 40 minutes before he called anyone. He came home that night. Elara was in the kitchen. He walked in. He said, "He's gone." And she did not say anything. She just went to him, and she put her arms around him, and he put his face in her hair, and he stood there, very still, for a long time. She felt his shoulders shake exactly once. She did not mention it. He did not mention it. She did not think he cried. Or if he did not cry in any way she had been taught to recognize. He breathed against her hair, in and out, and eventually he said, "Thank you, E." And he stepped back, and they ate dinner with her mother, who had, by unspoken agreement, never quite left. Arthur Vance lived another 5 weeks. Elara visited him. She did not visit every day. She visited once a week, and she sat in his den, and she did not forgive him all at once because she had said it would take her a long time, and she had meant it. She brought him soup that her mother had made. They did not talk about the trap. They talked about other things. Her grandmother, whom she had loved. The summer he had taken her to the Indiana Dunes when she was 7. A book he had given her for her 10th birthday that she remembered and he had forgotten. He asked her once whether Roman was good to her. She said, "He is trying." Arthur closed his eyes and said, "That is better than I was, sweetheart. I want you to know that." He died in his sleep in May. Her mother cried at his funeral. Elara did not. She had been doing her crying quietly for weeks, in small private moments, and by the time they lowered her father into the ground, she had very little left. She held her mother's hand. Her mother leaned against her. Roman stood behind them. Tommy stood behind Roman. Paolo stood behind Tommy. They were, she realized, an odd little family. And something else, too. Something she did not fully understand until that summer. Roman left the business. It did not happen in one day. It happened slowly. Tommy took more. Paolo took more. A man Roman trusted from Cleveland came in to handle the shipping side. Roman showed up less and less. He spent more time in the apartment. He began, in July, to be home in a way he had never been home. He learned how to make coffee, a skill he had not possessed somehow at the age of 34, having spent his entire life being brought coffee by other people. He sat at the kitchen counter in the morning in pajama pants and read the newspaper like an ordinary man. He said, in August, almost casually, "I think I am going to open a bakery." Alara put down her cup and looked at him. He said, "A real one. On Taylor Street. It would be a thing I could do." She said, "Then do it, Roman." He did. He opened it the following spring. Sophia's father came to the opening. It was awkward. He held Roman's hand and he cried, and he did not say anything. Roman gave him the first loaf out of the oven. Her name was not on the sign, but she was on the sign in a way. Alara understood that, and she was all right with it. They did not rush anything, she and Roman. Not that summer. Not the next fall. They were married in every legal sense, and they were not yet married in any other. He slept in his room. She slept in hers. They ate together. They walked together. They went to her mother's for Sunday lunches, which were inedible, and which all three of them pretended to enjoy. One night in October, Alara knocked on his door at 11:30. She did not say anything. She just stood there. He opened the door. He looked at her. She looked at him. "I wanted to see if you were up," she said. "I was up." "Okay." "E. Yeah. Do you want to come in?" "I think so. Yeah." She went in. They did not rush. They sat on the edge of his bed and talked for almost an hour about nothing in particular, about a dog they had seen on the lakefront that morning, about her mother's latest bad recipe, about a book he had been reading. When he kissed her, it was not fireworks. It was the kiss of two quieter than that. It was the kiss of two people who had been almost touching each other across kitchen counters and library rugs for months, and who had finally stopped being almost. She did not go back to her own room that night. Their daughter was born 2 summers later, a girl. They named her Nora, after Alara's mother, and Nicholas, as a middle name, after a boy who had never been born. Both grandmothers cried at the hospital. Nora, who was by then almost 56 and had moved into an apartment 2 blocks from Alara's building, and a second grandmother, by which Alara meant Marta, who had long since stopped pretending to be just the housekeeper. She was family. She had been family since the lasagna. One night, when Nora Nicholas was 2, Alara found Roman in the nursery. It was not the old nursery with the watercolor bird. They had closed that room. They had simply closed the door and never opened it again. And eventually, when their daughter came, they had made a new nursery on the other side of the apartment, painted pale yellow, with a mobile of wooden birds turning slowly over the crib. This was that nursery. He was standing in the middle of it at 3 in the morning, watching their daughter sleep. He did not hear Alara come in behind him. She put her hand very softly on his back. He did not jump. He put his hand over hers without turning. "E. Hi. I was checking on her." "I know." She was making a noise. "I know, Roman." A pause. "I did not think I would get this," he said. "I know. I did not think there would be a this to get." "I know." "Thank you." "For what, Roman?" "For not going to Michigan." She laughed very softly into the back of his shoulder. "You're welcome." They stood in the nursery a long time, watching their daughter breathe, and Alara thought then about the woman she had been, the bride in the ivory dress, walking alone down an aisle in a ballroom, with a mother who had left early and a father who had sold her and a husband who could not look at her. She thought about that woman. She felt a great tenderness toward her, as if she were a niece or a younger sister. She wanted to tell her something. She wanted to tell her, it is not love that saves you, in the end, not the kind they sell. Not the sweeping kind, not the rescuing kind, not the kind that shows up like a cavalry. It is the small, slow thing of two broken people choosing every day to stop being broken at each other. It is two people who were sold to each other deciding, without anyone making them, to stay. It is a husband who did not want you learning your coffee order in a week. It is a mother who flies home with a hangover because you asked. It is a housekeeper who sits down to eat with you when you tell her to. It is a father you forgive not because he earned it, but because you are tired of carrying him. The cage was real, she wanted to tell that younger woman. It was made of money and men and other people's plans. And it was real, and you did not imagine it. But you will find that the door was never actually locked. It was only that nobody had told you you were allowed to walk out. And when you learn you are, you will come back sometimes. Because the cage is also a home, and you can make it one if you are stubborn enough. And you are. You are stubborn enough. She did not say any of that, of course. She was standing in a nursery at 3 a.m. with her hand on her husband's back, and her daughter was sleeping, and her mother was snoring 2 rooms away, and Marta, who had never moved out, was asleep in the small suite near the kitchen. The apartment was quiet. The city was quiet. The lake was black outside the window, and somewhere far away a boat was moving, its small red light crossing the dark. Roman squeezed her hand on his back. Yeah. Let's go to bed. Okay. They closed the nursery door. They went to bed, in their own room, which had eventually become theirs. And Alara Vance DeLuca, who had been sold and had survived it, and who had, against every reasonable expectation, been loved, fell asleep and slept deeply and did not dream. Outside, the rain that had been falling off and on for years finally, that night, stopped. And in the morning, the world kept going, and she was in it, and she had chosen it, and that, she understood finally, was the whole thing. That was all of it. That was what any of it had ever been about. The end.